O objetivo dessa entrevista é trazer informações atualizadas sobre o transtorno de personalidade narcisista para terapeutas, estudiosos e indivíduos narcisistas. Vamos ser maduros nos comentários. Qualquer comentário desrespeitoso será apagado e o indivíduo bloqueado.
Hello, people! I'm so happy to be here. We're gonna do live with Tessa, Spirit Narc, who is a twice diagnosed narcissist with histrionic traits. We had a bit of an issue on YouTube, a technical issue, so we're just gonna do it here, which is fine. Yay, Spirit Narc is here! So I'm just gonna wait for my sister to join. My sister just joined, so I can help her. Okay. Give me just a second so I can let people know what's going on. All right, so things are working here just fine. Now I don't remember how to make my sister a moderator. Eddie, do you remember what we did the other time? I'm touching your name and nothing is happening. Wait, add as a moderator. There we go. Okay, we're set. Okay, whew. So guys, this is a moderated live. I want everybody to be nice and respectful. I'm really excited about this live. I've been following Spirit Narc for a while now, and I have a gazillion questions for her. All right, my sister is the moderator, and we can get started. Where's Spirit? Here we go. So Instagram is kind of not request to join. Wrong person requesting to join. Spirit, can you request to join? I'm calling you Spirit. Because like nothing is happening. When someone's crying, someone's like, please, work already. This is going to be in English, and I'm going to, there we go. I'm going to translate it later for my Brazilian YouTube channel, but you can ask questions in Portuguese, and we can translate, okay? Okay, so she should be joining in a little bit. Yay! Can you hear me? I can hear you, but it's like super low. I don't know if it's just low for me or if it's low for everybody. You look stunning. Dude, I literally cannot hear a word you're saying. People give me some feedback if you're hearing her, because for me, it's like I can't hear anything at all. Just like a little weird fuzz. Okay, I think it's not working. Let's try it again, I think. Guys, we have some technical issues, but it's going to be a great live. Hang on in there. Okay, people can't hear, so it wasn't just me. I'm so excited. So we'll try it again. Hang in there, y'all. Have a bit of patience. We have so many interesting questions. Okay, let's try this again. Let's try this again. And how is my connection, you guys? Is my image okay? Is the sound okay? Are things working for you guys as well? Hey, say something. Can you hear? You can't hear anything at all? Hold up, let me try. What about, can you hear me now? What's going on, guys? Oh wait, I heard something. Oh, that's what boyfriends and husbands are for. Yes. Oh God, yes. Yay for the hubby.
Richard. Richard is your name, right?
I'm like,
You rock, Richard. We all need a husband who thinks, man. I have one who thinks as well.
I do want to try and see if I can turn that
Okay,
off, though.
you mean the comments? What do you want to turn off? Oh, yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Great, awesome. Okay, we are good to go. That was
Hurdles, man. Resiliency. It's all about healing and facing challenges.
Yeah. Know what's going on.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love the attitude. Man, you are beautiful. You look stunning. You look stunning. Gorgeous.
Thank you so much. I for these earrings specifically for this live stream,
Yes.
because I'm going to be talking about how psychedelics
yes.
helped me.
I want to get into that because I think there is a lot to be said about that, and all of this stuff is stigmatized, right? But it's high time that we look at it in a different way. And in the name of all the cluster Bs that I have tried to love in my life, some of them I had to go no contact with, you know what that's like, but I did not have to go no contact with other ones. Yeah. And this is in the name of all of those, who are human beings, right?
Yeah, that's really nice to like put that narrative out there. It's like, hey, this is possible. Like some people, for anybody, regardless of diagnosis, it may not work out.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. But the truth of the matter is, when we start, us victims, because I'm not saying that people aren't victimized by other people's untreated mental health issues. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying it's not black and white, right? Yeah. I'm not into the whole empaths here and monstrous narcissists there thing.
It's just to hurt people, honestly. And, yeah, that's how I try to see it. I mean, I've had my own relationships just like implode in the past. And to me, it just felt like a tragedy because I think like deep down, everyone just wants to be safe and loved, even people with NPD. And, they just don't know how to get there. And like same with codependence and just everybody. And it's tragedy when people's defense mechanisms just ruin the relationship.
And that's the thing. I'm coming from that place of like, I've been on this healing journey for a very long time. I have a narcissistic mother. We're actually no contact right now. She's one of the people that it did not work with. But, with other people that did the work, and I was, for whatever reason, because they're somewhere on this spectrum where this is possible, or because they had a lot of losses in their lives, or whatever reason, they put in the work. And the truth of the matter is, when we look into, why am I in this toxic relationship? What's going on? And we find the narcissistic thing. We're coming from a place of, God, I wish I could love these people. I wish it could work, right?
Yeah. And I've more and more, like I get people in my DMs, and that's definitely been more of the vibe that I've been getting from people is just like, God damn it, why wasn't I able to love
So sorry, I was looking down because I have a client who has narcissistic personality disorder, and she's like, where are you? I can't find you. You're not on YouTube. I'm like, wait, we're on Instagram. We're on Instagram.
Yeah, we had to move places several times.
Okay, so let's start out with you just letting everybody know who you are, where people can find you, what your purpose is with all of this, and then we'll get started with the gazillion questions. And whenever you feel uncomfortable or you want to go in a different direction, it's really about listening to whatever you want to bring to the table, okay? I might have to pee in the middle of the live because I pee like a gazillion times. I'm just throwing that out there.
Don't worry. Hey, my good friend Jacob.
Oh, good. Oh, thank God.
Always me. Bro, like,
oh, good. Oh, I feel less awkward then. So go on. Introduce yourself.
So my name's Tessa. For those of you who don't know, I am turning 25 this August, and I've been diagnosed with NPD twice. If you're interested, you can find me on... I used to be on TikTok, but I'm revamping that. But I'm on YouTube and Instagram at Narc. And honestly, I first started my journey just wanting, I went through a narcissistic collapse, which basically is just the destruction of your defenses. And I was in a lot of pain. So I started, honestly, just wanting to feel better. Like, oh, I can use psychology to harness, like, control again of my mind. But then it, like, turned into something bigger. So, like, now I feel like I'm here to, honestly, as I've been healing, help other people understand their partners or themselves and like make this world, I don't know, like a fucking better place. I've started believing in reincarnation, you know, I've been spiritual, and like I feel like I don't want to come back to a world that is just, I hate this world. To be honest, how can it, like my goal has like, it's really been interesting because like, you know, I started out, how can I stop suffering? Like it was all about like my feelings, and it did turn into something bigger, where I just want to really, really help. I think like we're having a mental health crisis in this world, and I think, you know, narcissistic traits and NPD are a part of that.
Okay,
and,
awesome.
yeah.
So Spirit Narc, I heard that you gave up on TikTok, but I guess you're getting back to that. TikTok is toxic. It's like, I don't know, man.
It's too much now. Yeah. It's a lot of hate and a lot of stigma. And for somebody with like, you know, ego, ability, we'll say. And I feel so proud that I can say that out loud now. But you know, it's not a place to be. Yeah, I can't do it. Like I feel like I'm sharing information and nobody listens. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys, I gotta say from the outside, it's wonderful to see communities for cluster Bs. It's like so necessary. It's kind of so obvious. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. When I came on this platform, there really wasn't one. I started like a year and a half ago, and I noticed that there were a few accounts here and there, but there wasn't really like a sense of like, we're in this together. And I've seen that build over the last year, and it's been incredible. And I think that like it is helping everyone because, you know, oh, I see like a lot of hearts people are giving, but like the more that people can heal themselves, the better they can be healed. And you know, everybody will be having less issues with each other, and that's like, what we want
exactly.
in this world,
And a specific thing is like I think a couple of things are necessary. So I think it's important for cluster Bs to have their own space so they can talk to one another, you know, in a non-stigmatizing space. Like I'm autistic, and for me to talk to autistic people, it's like such a relief. But yeah, and at the same time, I think this needs to be done. The victim channels, you know, with the horrible, monstrous narcissist. You know what I'm saying? We're on our journey, you're on your journey. I think this conversation needs to be had, because then you can explain how your mind works, and I can ask questions, and I can explain how my mind works, and it can be less lonely. It can be more like, oh wait, I think these people are humans, you know?
You know, coming from the other side of it, I had also, you know, codependent partners, and like the other side, I've seen that. I had a 5-year relationship with my ex who was a codependent and had a that. It was that dynamic. Yeah. So I've seen all sides of it, and I totally get it. And I also see like similarities in the types of traumas and stuff. So I think this is definitely a conversation worth having. Like, you know, instead of seeing people as like enemies, I even have like a little highlight reel on my Instagram. Like, truths. And it's so cheesy, but I just hope that people read it, and I'm like talking to everybody.
And anyone who reads it, it's like, wait a second, I don't have narcissistic personality disorder, but this kind of hits home. You know? Sure. And I was going to say something else, but I forgot. So let's get started with the questions. The nameless narcissist is here. Hey, Jacob.
Hey, what's up?
Okay. So, okay. So I guess the first question is, well, that's a question that you're used to answering a gazillion times, but I think it's going to be really useful for this conversation. How did you have your NARC crash? What is a NARC crash? How did you find out about your diagnosis? How did that go about?
So I had an involuntary neuropsych exam, you know, based on like my parents wanting me to do it. That kind of was my first diagnosis. They like sat me down and suggested that to me. And I obviously like didn't want to listen to people saying that. And shortly after, that was in December 2020. And then in January 2021, literally a month later, I thought I'd turned my back on all this stuff. And then I had a psychedelic, I was doing drugs a lot to cope with stuff. And I had this psychedelic experience where I kind of overdosed. And I had ego dissolution, which for somebody with NPD is kind of the most horrific thing you could ever experience. And I think that it booted me out of that part of myself, which was like the most developed part of me, and into like the undeveloped insides. And that was so scary. And I I woke up the next day dissociated, and you know, dissociation, if you guys know anything about that, it can be debilitating. Like, you feel ungrounded, and that, you know, I was so used to like being, I'm going to be honest, micromanaging everything about my life and myself. And because I was so dissociated and I had such a bad, messed up experience, I could no longer perform properly. I felt like humiliated, and then I isolated, and that's when my sense of self like fully fell apart. I feel like it was just like everything went up in flames, and like it just kept unraveling. And to be honest, it's still unraveling. Like, it just was never the same after that. And it was
Okay, hard. And so I guess for people who are listening, essentially what you're saying is that narcissism is a defense, right? So there's something underneath it, and so long as it's working, then I guess you can deal with things in less painful ways. That.
Yeah, I think really what it is at the core, and this is pretty sad, but like, you put a child through too much trauma and shit, and like the only thing left to do is really wall up like that to like even stay alive, to like make sense of the world, to like continue functioning. Because like, I realized I would have to like move out of my parents' house and become an adult, and like, you know, you can't just like collapse under that weight of trauma. So the defenses do come up and they do form, and that's, you know, kind of how that happens. And I also believe identity issues are a big part of that. Like, from the get-go, the child is not having a good relationship with their parents somehow. Like, something's not forming properly. So by the time they're an adult, it's already so much, you know, this sense of self is all messed up.
And it's good that you say that, because like with my conversation with with clients and also with Jacob, it's like a lot of people have this impression that narcissists are born these demons, and I'm trying to educate people about trauma, and that stuff doesn't just pop up out of nowhere most of the time. I've never met someone with a personality disorder who did not go through trauma. Maybe it's possible. I've heard that it's possible in some cases. I just personally not ever met somebody like that. What's your take?
And I'm suspicious, like, for me, even the people who say they don't have trauma have just repressed it so deeply that, like, they don't even
exactly
think they do. And it's
and Pretty April is here. Yeah. I follow you too.
Oh, look at that. She's gonna live on that recognition right there. I love it.
Yeah, and so essentially you're telling me that that someone just asked, why is she wearing, in Portuguese, why is she wearing what's it called in English? Well, shrooms on your earrings. But that's why.
Psychedelics, I do so much, because like psychedelics destroyed my sense of self, but it also, a different type of psychedelics healed it, I feel like, a lot. And I don't say heal as in cure, I say healed as in it really helps me manage things. Like, I'm by no means like cured of anything. I still suffer a lot, I still go through a lot. But my God, like, that's what I'm pointing to. I'm like, this changed my life. Like, really, there's studies that, you know, psychedelics and, you know, psilocybin in particular can open up, you know, empathy, can open up, it takes you back to like the childhood period where you are open to learning new languages and things. And like, I do think it has a power.
Yeah, yeah. I know, and I know it's also another stigmatized thing, but the reality is, oftentimes when people are looking, you know, they're doing drugs, what they're looking for is a different experience of reality. And that's kind of looking for a spiritual experience. They're trying to access different parts of themselves. And something like psychedelics can definitely bring stuff up that in your self state that you're always maintaining, right? Because you have a very rigid experience of who you are because you're stuck in that same self state, right? You don't access the other parts, right?
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. It sometimes felt to me like, taking shrooms was the only way to escape my self-construct. It was super scary because like I reached a point of self-awareness where I started feeling trapped because like I could tell like this is a pattern, and it goes really deep, and we can discuss like the difference, like the specifics, but I started feeling like scared, like because I realized how trapped I was. Like, that's how fucked up this shit is. I say to people, like, even if you're aware you have NPD and you want to feel better, it is still like impossible to escape this disorder. It feels like sometimes, like, where do you go? What do you do? Like, there's not many treatments out there. That's
and I would also say that if you've been stuck in a self state that you're walled in, and you've been that way since childhood, you don't have the resiliency to deal with other stuff yet. So I think part of the thing that gives the impression that you're not healing, and I just gotta say from the outside, as someone who's been watching you guys for a couple of years, for me, you guys are healing. It's just, it's not gonna be fast.
Yeah, I do believe now. Yeah, for sure. I think something's happening, but it is a very slow process because at the core of it, yeah, you can't just, I mean, people always say, oh my God, you know, people with NPD can be so maladaptive, so toxic, you know, acting out in this and that way. So they just want to take that away. But you can't just, like, you know, somebody can't survive like that. They're protecting a very injured core. So if you want, it's really a slow process of like replacing maladaptive defenses with like new coping mechanisms, you know? Like you can't just like strip it all away. You have to like take one maladaptive behavior away and replace it with like, you know.
Yeah, and it's painful because now, like before you weren't aware, now you're aware that you have these maladaptive behaviors, but you literally have no coping mechanism. So now you're aware of it and you don't know what to do with it. So it's like, damn. You know?
Yeah. Because like you go online, right? Like people have gone online, like they're like, okay, like I've had my narcissistic collapse, I'm in hell now, how do I, like, help me? And then like all that pops up is the stigma, and it's frustrating.
It is,
you know,
it's frustrating, but you guys are doing a lot to change that. Okay, I'm gonna shut up and let you talk because you're the interviewee, but it's just, there's so much to be said about this, but go on.
No, I was actually like super curious what questions you had. I'm super excited.
Me too. I'm really happy that you agreed to this. It was, you know, it took a while for us to finally be able to find a time slot that would work for the both of us. But I think that's, it's okay. I figured. I watch your channel. I understand that you go through stuff, and I just want you to feel comfortable. So I was like, whenever she's comfortable and it's good for me as well, then it's gonna happen and it's gonna be good. You know, I want everyone to just feel comfortable. Okay, so let's get started with the questions. We already got into a few of them, but let's get into. There's a lot of questions here. Could you? Well, I guess you've already kind of described what a collapse is, but do you want to say anything else about that before we go on?
I think that I just want to debunk a bit of stigma that I sometimes see online where they're like, you know, narcissist is super dangerous. I think that, like, that's a sad way to look at it. I don't know. I think that when I was like in the midst of it, I did get angrier for a while. Yeah. I was like angry, depressed. I didn't just have depression. I was like, but it was because I was like scared. It's a scary experience. It really feels like you are being annihilated because like your sense of self is falling apart. And if you think of your sense of self as like the core of who you are, the idea of that falling apart, it's like where am I sliding into, like an abyss? Like what's gonna happen to me? And it's terror. Like it can be so fucking scary. So I just wanted to add that I want to try and give like a conception of what it's like to go through, but it's really not easy to explain. It's definitely like a dark night of the soul.
I think there's a lot of that. Like, I think all of us who are looking for healing of any kind, there is a dark night of the soul. And I watched one of your lives where you're like, you know, the thing with me is I don't have faith because if it's not evidence-based, then I'm like, I'm not going to believe in it. I don't trust it. And the reality is, if we knew what to do with ourselves, we wouldn't be unhappy and depressed, would we? So there's got to be something beyond what we know, beyond what we can see. And I remember I watched one of your stories, this was months ago, and you said that you were having a behavior that you used to have in the past, where you would get validation, but your inner voice said, this is icky.
Oh my God. Because I used to do this thing where I would, like, you know, go out with people, and here's my HPD traits coming out, to be frank with you. You know, I got a lot of, you know, self-esteem juice, as Jacob likes to call it, from, like, my looks and, like, going out with men and, like, this and that. But because I had my collapse, there was this new voice, this new fragment that I think I'd repressed to speaking up, like, hey, you know, like, I'm not comfortable, like, I don't like this person, this doesn't feel right, because I used to just be able to do it for attention, and it felt great, and that's all it was a very hollow, but, like, rewarding experience. But now, like, this other part of me was like, I'm not, like, I want to go home, I don't like this man, like, this doesn't feel right, you know, like, I was like, what the hell, you're ruining my plans. I was like, oh my God. Like, this is whatever this is, you know, I think it's whatever's left of like my inner child, I guess, or like my inner self, whatever happened to that.
Yeah, I feel that it's like there's a difference between being walled in and not having the other parts. You just don't have, you know, you're just walled in, you're dissociated, you're fragmented. The dissociation is meant to separate you from these other parts. But once you start looking into it, I mean, you have a voice. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you have an inner voice? You are a human, aren't you? Don't be all Sam Vaknin on me now.
I'm still working on that. Okay, we'll pass that one for now. I really feel though, like when my like disorder was at like the height of itself, self-aware, I feel like that the only voice that was speaking was my ego, because like all the other parts, and this is part of the problem, it's identity issues. All the other parts have been super undeveloped. So healing is almost the most terrifying thing, because you have to face your fragmented self, and it's not going to be pretty. And it hasn't been, but like there is a light side to it where I am starting for the first time ever that I can even remember, like even all the way back to 4 years old, I feel like alive for the first time. And that's, yeah. And it comes in little bits. Other times I feel like a hollow, like I freak out and I'm like, oh my God, like, and it comes and it goes. But like I do sense like there's a place, you know, that I'm getting to, and it's super, it's the most sad, beautiful, it's like bittersweet.
It's beautiful. You know? It's beautiful to hear that. I also believe that a lot of things is just like training and gaining resiliency and gaining practice in things. So it's like, you know, I'm sure you'll be saying other things in 2 years' time, or in 6 years' time, or in 10 years' time. You'll be looking back and be like, dude, I used to think like this. Damn, I was immature.
I literally already do that. I am looking back at my past relationships, like what went on. I don't know who that is.
See, so growth is possible. Honestly, people are like, okay, obviously it's going to be slow and stuff, but at the same time, have you seen codependents heal super fast and learn how to set boundaries and learn how to change that? It's slow. I've taken years, over a decade, to like not have diarrhea when I had to say no to somebody because I was people pleasing all the time, you know?
Oh man. Yeah, that's fascinating. I always end up dating partners that are like that, so it's almost just, it's something that I've always been like fascinated about, because it's the other side of that.
Exactly.
Like, trauma.
Okay, let's get into some more questions here. Okay, well, what's it like living with NPD? What are the things that you want the world to understand?
Oh man, honestly, it feels a lot of the time like you're living in some sort of Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. Like, you know, the Twilight Zone, the show? It's a freaky place in my head. Like, it's not, I mean, how do I even describe it? I once described, like, the most prominent feeling is like loneliness, but like it's a loneliness where you feel like you're sitting somewhere high up in the clouds, like floating past the moon, and deep down below you see like all these people like having fun and laughing and chatting, and there's warmth and light, and you're like, well, I'm not a part of that, that's not for me, but you know, I'm up here, I'm above it all, you know. But like a part of you is always just really like deeply sad, looking down at, you know, on the ground where apparently, you know, all these people seem lesser, but at the same time there's so much warmth, and I don't know, it's a very lonely experience, and other times it's a very trapping experience. I think that when you're unself-aware, you don't feel trapped as much because you don't really know what's going on, but once everything breaks down, you realize how hard this is to get out of, because like I think one of the things that's not really talked about, what it feels like to live with this, is it's really hard to emotionally learn or internalize anything, like about yourself, about other people. Like, you know, my current, like my boyfriend, he's experienced this with me, where like we will have like a really loving night, and then like I'll wake up in the morning and I'm like super annoyed at him. I don't even know why sometimes, and I just have like no emotion towards him, and it's like I can't hold on to excuse me, like a solid, like it's that way with myself. So like I constantly feel like I'm in some sort of bizarre, like incoherent existence, and like Um, I don't know. I feel like there's something as well with like time distortion. It's just it's like a Twilight Zone experience, really. Nothing like really seems to be coherent in the long term. Like sometimes, like for example, you know, I can gain like 100 followers on like Monday, and by Friday I'm like, I've been stagnating for so long, this is like insane, like I'm so bitter, I hate this. And then I'll go look back through my photos and I see this screenshot and I'm like, that was Monday, you know. There's no way. Like it feels like it's been a month, you know. It's like it's very bizarre and very fragmented when you really get down to the root of it. And I think that like there's also a feeling of like that I've been hitting now where I feel like I'm doing all of these behaviors that should lead to connection with people, such as like being vulnerable, quote unquote, like sharing very deep stuff and this and that. But yet I never seem to actually like connect to the other person in a lot of ways. And like the person remains replaceable. And it's like, okay, yeah, I just had this like great conversation with them. But, you know, if I didn't see him tomorrow, I'll just go find someone else. And it's like, what am I missing? Like, what am I not doing? Like, you know, and it's just, it's God, I don't know. It's a mess in there. And sometimes it feels like, I don't know, on the really bad days, it feels like you are in hell inside your head. That's the best I can describe it as.
How would you describe the oscillations between grandiosity and the vulnerable states? How does that happen for you?
Well, before I was self-aware, it happened a lot less. I remember this one experience because, like, you know, vulnerability is like the really the dark side of the triggers where you can hit like this feeling of nothingness, right? Like, I remember before I was self-aware, I had this one moment with my ex where like he wanted to invite me over for the entire day, and he picks me up in the morning and we were heading over to his house, and suddenly I had this feeling for a split second, like, oh my God, I'm an empty shell. Like, I don't know what to like give. I don't know. Like, I feel like I was like worried about how much I had to like manually like exist or like feel like I had a real personality around him. But then I was like at a loss for it. And for like one split second, I remember hitting like rock bottom immediately and being like, I'm nothing, you know, like I'm nobody. And then immediately, like my brain covered that up. And all of a sudden, I found like everything wrong with like his house, his situation. Suddenly it was like, oh, well, you made this so boring, like, you know, this and that. And then I like left, and it was so bizarre. Like I hit like the bottom and immediately bounced back. And suddenly it was like external. And that's a lot of my experience. Once that breaks down, like now that I'm self-aware, it turned into a lot more of like an up and down because there wasn't like that immediate like protection.
So you're actually stronger even though it hurts more.
Oh man.
Yeah, but it is.
I like that.
You literally couldn't take it before. Yeah. That's what it is. You literally couldn't take it before.
Yeah, I guess so. I think that, yeah, I just didn't know how. I think that where I'm at right now, it almost feels like I've finally self-realized as well that the bad, like the darker side, the vulnerability is also a bit delusional. I mean, like, it'll tell you stuff like, you know, you should not go out of the house until you're like less fragmented, you know, you have to like be more of a real person because people are going to find out you're a fraud. If you go out right now and you go meet up with someone, they're going to see in like 10 seconds that you have barely anything besides like 5 personality points to like share, you know, like, because you really build your outer self, right? It's like, oh, I'm a musician, you know, I do this and that. But then like once those are run through, it does feel like this terrifying sense of like, oh my God, like, you know, I have nothing else, you know. And I think that's also part of that is not really knowing your inner self or even getting to develop a coherent inner self. And part of it is the thought that I think is delusional about it, though, is like, you don't deserve, because that's what the ego will tell you. You don't deserve to go out until you reach this point. It's like, I don't want to subscribe to that shit anymore. And the grandiosity usually covers that up. That's why, like, when you're unself-aware, you don't have to face that pain. You don't have to face those fears. Because, yeah, you're just like, oh, yeah, you know, like, I don't know. It's very safe because I still remember what it felt like being able to just walk around and just assume that if something else, if something went wrong, it wasn't me. I knew it wasn't me because, like, you know,
Yeah, you know,
they're lucky I'm even here, you know?
what you can tell nowadays, I mean, that's so powerful. You can tell that the vulnerability is bullshit as well. I mean, the messages, right?
The tells you to do with it. I think that it is fair to say, you know, to validate the level of
Sure.
suffering that comes from the identity. But I think that it's not constructive to let it win and tell you that, like, either you shore up and say, you know, like, I don't know. The thing is, grandiosity is really nice, but if you go too deep into that one, it ruins relationships. You know, it takes off and it becomes like this untamable, like, part of yourself. So yeah, there's a middle ground where you just want to say, like, no, I still deserve to enjoy myself and my life. I don't have to just wait around to be like up here or something. It's the high standards of
I saw you mentioning inner family systems, and that's something that I've seen really good results with. And I've been teaching that type of parts work here in Brazil for a few years. And one of the concepts in inner family systems is that when we're so fragmented that we split, when you're splitting, you do not access the wise part of you. You don't access anything else. So that becomes your entire reality, right? But it's not that it doesn't exist.
It's
just somewhere else.
It's just somewhere else. I know that. Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, several different people with NPD have described this. I mean, for Jacob, he said, I think it was like shifting tectonic plates, and like whatever's at the forefront is just there. The others are just, because like, yeah, it really is like that. You know, like if you are in a self state where you're just loving with your partner and this and that, it's genuine. But then like, you can also immediately like go to just like utter apathy, and that also feels genuine, and you don't even remember the other self state in which you were feeling love for them, and it's like, holy shit, everything's so disconnected. How can you
So one of the signs that you just showed us, that a sign of healing as well, is the fact that you can question the shitty messages that you give yourself in your vulnerable state. So that means you're actually creating like a bridge between one fragment and the other fragment, because now one fragment can hear the other fragment, even if it is just like a distant whisper, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And because like my ego death kind of like honestly destroyed my ego. It's back, by the way. It's back. It recovered. But it was for a while, and like in that time period, other parts of me had the chance to see the light and develop and grow stronger. And one of those parts was like this piece that I call the observer part of me that can regulate. It grew strong enough to regulate, like, hey, are you sure this thought is true? You should reality check it, you know, whether it's about, because like I still get insulted all the time too. That's another thing. Like I think I remember one time I went to like Applebee's with my boyfriend, and I made this joke to the server and they didn't laugh at all, and I like immediately like became enraged because I was super triggered. And like, you either question, am I just not funny? Am I just the worst, uncharismatic, whatever? Or like, you think to yourself, man, he doesn't even deserve to like, whatever. It's like these two sides, like, it was bad. I was telling my boyfriend by the end of it was really bad. I don't know if I should say this. I was like, I wouldn't even care if I got run over by a car. It was really bad. Like, you don't want to go to that extreme of apathy, extreme of like, whatever. And my boyfriend was able to like get me to a place where he was like, look, you know, it's like almost 12, Tessa, like 12 at night. Like maybe he's just tired. He's working a night shift. Maybe he didn't even hear you properly. Is this really about you? You know, go here or here, you know, but that part of you takes a long time to like develop. It's only been recently that I've ever like,
it does take a long time to develop, but it does. Like it's a training thing. It's just, I know that it seems impossible because the self states are completely true, and you do believe them.
You're on a roller coaster. You just feel like the roller coaster is, you know, how life is. It's like, oh yeah, that's reality. You know, you don't question it. You're just like, you're along for the ride, and really anything that comes up, it just has control over you. And that's why self-awareness is so, I used to regret it a lot. I used to miss my grandiosity. I still like grandiosity, but like, I used to miss being unself-aware because it was so much less painful, right? But then I realized I didn't have more control at all. I actually have more now. I don't have to let, you know, just, I used to just act, you know, and maybe I was acting in a way that didn't actually get me what I wanted.
Absolutely.
Now I get to make a choice, you know, what's the best thing to do to get what I want, you know? Maybe it's not the immediate reaction that my NPD wants
And just
to do.
creating that space between feeling and reacting is maturity. That's literally what maturity is, right?
Oh.
So a couple of things about the self-states and stuff. My sister she told me, not the one that's here, my other sister, told me that in the past, she's like cluster B flavor, let's put it that way, not officially diagnosed anything. She shared that she used to use men for validation, and, you know, she used to use her appearance and stuff because that was easy. And
yeah. You know,
sure.
oh my God, can I say something? To me, it was have a sense of self. I don't have to have an identity. I can just go out on dates. I can look good. And then if they said, like, oh, what do you think about this? I just read them and tell them whatever they wanted to hear because I was lazy. Well, no, really lazy. I'm just being hard on myself. I had no coherent identity. So I was like, oh, It's easy. Here, you know? And then I was like, just keep it here. Have this, you know? I have to, like, have a genuine authenticity to bring to the table, and I didn't want one at that time, which is also really concerning.
Yeah, and what reminded me of I mean, her experience reminded me of what you say and how you describe it. But she did say something that I think was really valid. She said, "But Tati, you know what? An inner family system says this as well. If you have a behavior, a self state, or a part that takes on an extreme role, it's because that's part of your authentic self, but it's just taking on an extreme role." So she says, I think the reason I use my body and my appearance is because I am sensual, and I am sexy, and I am someone who likes that.
That's crazy. Because I'm trying to figure that in terms of myself, does that ring true? I have a really complicated relationship with that side of myself, so I'm not sure. I think there's more healing to be done, but it makes a lot of sense. I mean, in relation to that, I always felt like when I was in my depressed state, that like my ego self was like a fraud. Like people would say, oh my God, you're so charming. And like, I would go out and people would walk away being like, oh, I could talk to Tessa for hours. And meanwhile, I was just like, you know, I felt like that part of me was a fraud, but maybe it's because I'm just disconnected from it. That might be a genuine piece of who I am now. It's just like, I don't know. As you say, none of the self states are connected. It's really that problem that I think makes up a lot of issues with cluster Bs and relationships. And
you also said
everything.
Something in one of your lives about like it's not about killing off any parts of you or judging your defense mechanisms that kept you safe, right? It's about honoring the fact that you are alive. Imagine if you hadn't had your grandiosity. Imagine if you hadn't had certain defenses for you to deal with stuff. Exactly. I
wouldn't be. Oh man, I sorry. I saw someone in the comments saying like, can you tell her, or can you tell someone it's not possible to be self-aware? When are we gonna get rid of that myth? What did somebody say? I'm not in the comments. I should have put tape over them, but God damn it. Okay.
Please do. Please, I've been addressing this for years, but I don't know what the heck else I have to say, but go on.
People just don't want to listen. Okay. It is hard for people with cluster B personalities to become self-aware. Yes, I will validate that. And it's because there's so much of a chance that if they face that, they will become dysfunctional or honestly suicidal. And who wants to do that to themselves? Who wants to push themselves there? Nobody, right? It's scary. So people run the other way, but it is possible. And it's possible to live through it and come out the other side. And honestly, you still have the core, like, it's not like you're suddenly not a narcissist anymore. You still struggle every day, but you have self-awareness. All self-awareness is knowing why you do what you do, why you feel what you're feeling. Like, that's it. Come on, people. Like, there's no, I don't understand. I know, like, it's hard for people because a lot of the people in their lives are not self-aware, and
it's not just that. It's also that it's the information. Like when I started this work like a long time ago, I used to say the same thing, but it's because there were none of you guys online. And it's true. And the diagnosed narcissist that there were online was like Sam Backman. He's like, we are an empty shell. We are an alien. I'm not a true human.
Sam, no, Sam at all.
Sure, me too.
The first person I found when I was like, I'd had my, ego dissolution. I was super scared. I was like stressed. I was like, okay, maybe I'll take a second look at that diagnosis. And I found his work, and I had like panic attacks. Honestly, he was like, "There are zombies and this and that." I was like panic attack in my bed. I was like, "Oh my," because I didn't know. Like, but I've come so far from that point where I'm like, I don't automatically trust what I don't even read stuff on the internet anymore. I'm just trying to like carve my own path.
It's a
at this point.
scary place, but it's the place of you rebuilding a sense of self because it's your own path. You know?
Yeah, and it also doesn't. Yeah, and I want to throw out there that like it can be helpful for people who maybe like, you know, that type of mentality can be helpful for people who struggle to like leave it
Sure.
an abusive partner of any kind, because it's like people. I was talking about this problem earlier with someone. You know, people feel like, oh, because my partner has trauma, like I have to like, I can't leave. Like, you know, it's almost like you have to see that person as evil in order to like walk away. But it's just, it's hard. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. I don't know where I was going with that, but I just want to say like a lot of that information, yeah, the stigma that's out there actually keeps people unhealed because it keeps them in the anger, hatred part of what is actually like grief. You're grieving the pain of a, you know, relationship that didn't work out, and you're just posting hatefully every day because you're stuck in the anger phase of grief. You know, and
I tell people, so, like I get the anger, I get you want to kill people, I definitely understand homicidal ideation. Hey, kitty cat! Aww. Hey, cutie, you're so cute, you're so delicious.
One of the questions you said was like, do your pets help you heal? Oh my God.
Yes, I have 7, so, you know. So yeah, like going back to what we were saying, like a lot of my clients, I deal with people that came from narcissistic family systems, and I help them individuate, right? Think for themselves and build a sense of self as adults and stuff. And of course, a lot of them go through the whole I want to kill everybody stage, because that is a defense. It's part of the grieving, but it's the way they can let go of people, right?
And that's a healthy, it doesn't sound healthy, but it actually is okay to go through that. It is completely valid.
Perfect.
It's just if you don't move on from that phase, you're just hurting. Yeah, you're hurting.
Exactly. And also, I think that the deal is, I wish we could normalize 2 things in the same sentence, which is like, dude, if my inner compass tells me that I need to go no contact with someone or distance myself from someone for whatever reason, then I need to be able to respect that, while simultaneously may that person find a qualified support if they choose to seek it. Like I hope for us to talk about both things at the same time.
It's really, really, really hard to get to that second point. I know, because like you're really hurt and this person probably has done upsetting things and it's hard to like let go. But I think people can get there eventually, or even honestly, some people don't, in general, just don't deserve that respect and just like say goodbye. You weren't good for me. Maybe you taught me something about myself that like now I know how to heal in a different way, but you know, I don't need you in my life. You disrespected me, you know, and now you're gone. And like, you can also get to that point too. You don't have to like feel good for them necessarily. Let it.
So I'm kind of ignoring the comments just so we can kind of stay on track, but then we're kind of all over the place as well. But can I go on with the questions, and then we can look at some comments if you feel like it. If you get tired, if you don't feel like it, whatever. I'll have to pee in like in a few minutes, but
I'll go through them. But yeah, let's.
No, it's fine. This is great. I mean, the conversation is going well. So let's go on to some other questions. Okay, so what's the difference between someone who just has NPD traits and someone who has those traits but also suffers?
Oh man. Okay, so honestly, my opinion on this is, for the traits, I think just in general, narcissism and traits itself are a part of the human experience. So there's a healthy level, we can say that first, there's a healthy level of having certain things. And then we get into people who have, you know, a few traits, and those are probably to cover up some sort of specific insecurity, hurt, pain, whatever. It's just like that one little piece of their life covered. And, you know, there can be like a little bit of suffering with that as well. I think when you get to pathological realms is when, first of all, it's extremes of these traits, and that it's consistent across the person's entire personality. And usually there is identity issues. So people can have narcissistic traits without identity issues, But when the identity issues come in and the warped childhood and like, you know, certain things, that's when, you know, you're really starting to look at a pathological level of that stuff. And yeah, it's kind of hard to suss out on the surface, but you know, does that make sense?
I would also
just,
say, if it makes sense
yeah.
from watching your content and other cluster B's contents, that narcissistic traits can be egosyntonic or ego dystonic. So you can be fine with your traits.
Oh,
or you can suffer, man.
oh my God. That's honestly, oh God, that's a difficult one. Cause like, I feel like that's just like unself-awareness. First of all, your ego, you are your ego, basically. Your ego and you are like this at that point, and you're just going forward. And that's how a lot of, you know, people with NPD who are unself come across. But ego dystonic is like me and Jake. We have, you know, something separated, and you know, now everything's messy. And honestly, like, it's sad, but you know, with the lack of healing out there for narcissists to like even improve themselves and don't know where to go, some people actually become aware and then double down. And I have seen this, they double down on their NPD traits because they're like, well, since there's no healing anyway, and the world won't accept me, and I'm so bitter, it adds to the bitterness to the point where they double down. I've seen that, you know, it's not, everyone's not going to do that, but I have seen, and it's sad because
Absolutely.
if there was information to help,
Absolutely.
I think it would
makes
help.
all the difference.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways that you protect your ego that you've been able to identify? What are some of your self-states, your parts, your defensive parts?
I would say the first one is anger. I mean, that's like the obvious one, but anger is a cover-up emotion for like literally everything. Sadness, you know, hurt, vulnerability, you know, fear is a big one. Oh my God, there's so much fear. I've seen a lot of fear in people with NPD. There's a lot to be afraid of. There's a lot of trauma, but anger can cover that up too. It's the ultimate state of being able to let out your emotions, which, you know, every person needs. You can't just bottle that up, and also not look, you know, quote unquote weak, as, you know, is taught in systems like that. So it's a very defensive emotion, and it can also, you know, anger is not all bad either. It's healthy to have a certain amount of anger, but it can get to the point where you're covering up things that, you know, you're never going to heal it because you're not facing it. That's one thing I would say. Honestly, I'm trying to think, like, defensiveness. I honestly feel like at a certain point, my own brain just defended me from myself. I don't know, like, it was, becoming self-aware was like a struggle in the way that I had to fight my own brain. And that sounds insane, but like I was trying to peer in there and it was like, no, and it would like slam the door in my face. And I was like, it was really, really difficult. So I almost feel like, yeah, the level of protection goes there as well. And of course, you know, not getting close to people. Here's the thing, and people with NPD don't often like to face this fact, but when you rely on people, when you look to people to tell you who you are and to make you feel good, to make you feel okay, you are in essence relying on people, which is scary, right? But here's the way that you can like protect yourself against that. The people themselves are replaceable. It becomes this weird thing where you're like, you're relying on this person, but it's scary to rely.
Tessa, I'm sorry, let me just pause.
So
for
yeah.
me, you're cutting off a lot. I don't know if it's just for me, if it's my connection. So can I just get some feedback from people? Can you guys hear her well, or because I want to hear what you're saying. It's important.
Yeah.
So, okay, guys, just give us some feedback. Let me know if you guys can hear what she's saying. Can you guys hear what she's saying?
Yeah. Let us know in the comments.
Come on, y'all. Let me know what's up.
90%.
Yeah? Somebody said it's cutting. Now it seems like the connection is a little bit fuzzy. Is mine fuzzy as well, Eddie, or is it just hers? Mine is fuzzy. Who is blurry, guys?
Not anymore. It was a little bit. I fixed my phone.
It actually does seem to have helped.
I'm like, okay.
Okay.
Do you want me to
please do, because people are saying that yours was fuzzy.
Yeah, you're also freezing a little bit. Yeah. let me just see. Also, this live will be
Yes,
recorded,
yes,
so that's
yes.
the good part of that as well.
It's better? Okay.
So yeah, I will repeat. Yeah, it's better. Okay, so yeah, what I was saying about the fear of reliance, I think a lot of people with NPD have like subconsciously overcome that, and it is completely subconscious, honestly. Maybe there's a little bit realization, but it's, you know, because of the nature of just having to rely on people in this world for feedback, you know, for like, who am I, like, for, you know, feeling good. The person themselves becomes replaceable. The person themselves becomes a placeholder for a best friend, partner, you know, friend group. And then those people themselves never really, you never really feel like you deeply connect with them. And, you know, if one of them falls out of the piece of the puzzle, like you just put another one in, you know, you just have another person, you replace them with another person. And it gives a sense of safety, as in you're not really having to attach and you're still getting your needs met,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah, that's how I try to explain it. I remember a lot of times going out like with friends and just like saying whatever I needed to say to seem interested, but really to me they were there to help me relive some sort of like, honestly, like fantasy that I maybe like I missed out in childhood, you know, like some feeling that I was desperately trying to relive and like capture. Because I think a lot of what causes NPD is neglect, like severe fucking like isolation, neglect, missing out on things. And you are starving by the time you're an adult. You are starving for praise. You are starving for attention. You are starving for all these things. And if you know, and by that time you also don't trust people either. People are dangerous and scary. That's what you've learned, right? So how are you even going to get this stuff from people? You have to like push. You have to. You don't really connect with actual people.
That's super important
in your life. Yeah, it's much less. Yes, because it's much less of a calculation than people think. It's not like, I don't know. It's so, it's hard to explain.
People are under the impression that you guys are like, you get like a book and you're like, let me plan it out how I'm going to destroy your soul.
It's even scarier than that. I'm gonna be honest. It's disturbing how.
Yeah, it's automatic, man, because it's unconscious. People who are fragmented are literally coming from an unconscious place. It's just knee-jerk reactions.
Well, it's just to people.
Yeah, sure it does.
So bizarre. It's like, who the like, because like you have to assume, and I totally get this because my partner was, you know, like, honestly it happens less with him now, but with my ex it happened a lot more. With my ex, you know, like he could not fathom why I would just like love him so deeply, and it felt real. That's what fucks it up. It's not a fake feeling. There's something there that tells you like it's real. And then the next fucking second, something's gotten triggered and it's just no love. Where did it go? Was it real? Was it ever real? How terrifying, right? How confusing, you know, and people's heads just go towards like, oh, well, they must be like doing this on purpose. Maybe they're just being loving so that, you know, I'll stick around and give them what, you know, whatever. But it's more, to me, it really always felt like this desperate dance where like I felt betrayed. I felt often like the victim. I felt like, well, what the fuck's going on? You were supposed to love me. You were supposed to take away my pain. And you just said this awful thing. You ruined our date. Like, how could you do this? We were having so much fun, you know. You're supposed to be the perfect partner, right? It's like, it goes back to that. You're supposed to take away this shit. You're not supposed to make me feel like I did as a child. You betrayed me, right? And it's all this insanity. And like, yeah, it's very much
splitting is very confusing from the outside because the person does look crazy. They look like they're psychotic because they're literally different personalities within like a fraction of a second.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, it's, as I said, it's tragic. It's really, 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 because like, you know, I wanted to talk about this a bit, but my perception, and I think this is one of the things that I wanted to talk about, like, what is it like living with this? My perception of things is so different. And like, when I found out what was really happening, it blew my mind. Like with my, like, honestly, no, this stuff doesn't really happen with my partner. With my ex, I keep gotta go back to that relationship. With my ex, there was this moment, and I don't really like talking about this, but I'm gonna try to. There's this moment where he had triggered me. He had said something really insulting. I felt like my sense of self was falling apart. So I was trying to get him to correct it, right? I was trying to control the situation. I was trying to get him to, he was scared, and I felt betrayed. And like, he said that I followed him around the house, and I was just like ranting at him until he finally like hid in the closet. And then I opened the closet and like I mocked him because I was like, what, you're a coward, this and that, whatever. To him, it looked like I was like the most awful person in the world. To me, completely different story. I felt betrayed. I was like, wow, he's just running away from responsibility. This is insane. Like, this is so abusive. Like, in my head, I was like, holy shit. Like, you know, he's just trying to like escape responsibility for what he said to me. But like, it's just the way that I was not able to see anything. And then like, I don't know.
It's a completely different narrative it's a completely different interpretation that you have in your mind. Of course it's defensive and therefore you're right. Right?
Yeah. It was the craziest shit. And like, I do think that's the tragedy in there. Cause like, really, I think, you know, people just want to love each other and they can't get through. They're not communicating properly.
I hope lives like this will help people, like recovering codependent and a recovering narcissist. They were like trying to understand each other, you know.
We speak different languages, and I don't know what's happening. Like, I'm terrified. He's terrified. We're all screaming. Like,
but we're still human somewhere underneath. So let's keep at it, right? All right. What are some of your histrionic traits, and how do you express themselves in you?
Oh my God. Okay. So not a lot is understood about HPD, and I just want to put out there, I also don't have an official diagnosis for that. I've been diagnosed twice with NPD, but no one's ever looked at the HPD. I felt like I self-identified with it because I started seeing, you know, I'm more of an expressive, there's like they say like rapid, shallow emotions is one of these criteria. And basically what that is you're more of an expressive person with NPD. Like you have more, you know, emotionality, but at the same time, those emotions, they never really hit your core. It's like, it's the equivalent of like crying for 5 minutes about something, and then like, it's like it never happened, and then you're just like, you move on. It never really is like a deep cry. It's never like a deep feeling. Or like, you know, I'll express myself openly. I'll say like, I love you guys are so kind, you know, this and that. But like, and I feel that like on the outside, but it never really pierces like through too many layers, if that makes sense. It never really hits my heart. Yeah.
That's not what I expected you to say. Actually, I had an expectation with regards to like appearance or some stuff like that, but that's deeper.
I had that. Yeah. Oh, there's so many people don't understand a lot about HPD. I mean, there's another criterion that's like, if you take like the HPD test, it'll tell you it's like disjointed I think like presentation or whatever. I think it means your fragmentation is just like even worse. You know, like it's even harder to hold on to things. But there's deeper layers to it. And then of course, you know, the reliance on looks to like, you know, gain attention.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. How do you deal with being alone? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not.
Do you want to say something?
I'm just gonna try and put my phone down.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can hear you.
Me?
The connection got better.
I'm just trying.
Oh yeah, because this must be uncomfortable, right?
Okay.
At some point, it's like, God damn it. So the next question is, how do you deal with being alone? Do you avoid this or do you seek this out?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I could ever be like permanently alone. The thing is, ever since I was 18, I've always been dating somebody. So like my regulation comes from dating people. You know, with Jacob, for example, he has like this friend enmeshment, and he's never actually lived with a partner. So it's different for both of us. But like, you know, like that. And I've never been alone in that sense, except for right after my ego death. And it was like 3 months because I was waiting for a new roommate to show up. Because I picked, you know, the old roommate, the relationship had blown up, of course, you know. So I was waiting there, and that was one of the scariest times of my life. So in that way, I don't think I can be alone. But in another way, I actually will isolate if like I don't feel ready to do something, and that's just my perfectionism. And like also like feeling like if I feel too much, like it's one of those days where my outer self isn't really doing so well, and like I feel like there's nothing, like people are gonna see I'm a fraud or something. I will like actually, there is a self-isolation aspect of NPD. Even like in the literature it's talked about sometimes, just not very much in the community, where like you choose to actually like avoid situations entirely because of trauma, you know, because of fear of
Yeah,
humiliation
Sam
or
Vaknin
something.
calls it the schizoid solution. When you can't face the
Oh,
world, so you have a
boy.
schizoid solution.
I hate labels. I'm gonna be honest. Sam Vaknin is very intelligent, but I think that I choose not to label stuff because it just worsens the problem almost. Because if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, man, like I'm feeling debilitated, or like I'm in this schizoid solution, isn't it gonna just like confirm that? You know, like I don't want to confirm that side of things. You know, if you want my honest opinion on how I really see it, I think that it is 100% like trauma, and if you, it's like, it's almost like, I think exposure therapy in a way might help with that stuff, like realizing that your fears, because a lot of this is PTSD, you know.
So one thing that Sarah Cluster B Milkshake said in one of her recent videos is that, you know, here I was trying to heal, hashing out all of the stuff that I've done in the past, like describing in full detail all of the crappy things I've done and saying that I'm a crappy person. And I was like, this isn't very healing. How am I supposed to heal if I keep on describing in detail all of the horribly painful experiences and I'm trying to move forward? So there's a lot to be said, like, about that, you know?
Well, yeah, and it's interesting because, like, I'm learning as I'm, you know, becoming a psychology major. In school, they tell you about, like, in order to heal from trauma, there is an important part of storytelling. And this, you know, is really helpful, where you tell the story again and again, editing and adding and realizing little bits and pieces until you have this fully formed story to express about, like, this is what I went through. And it actually heals a lot. But there, you can go over the line after that into, you know, obsessing over it. And there's like a line. Getting it out is also very important, you know, being able to like rewrite your story in a way that makes sense to you. It's making sense of your trauma. And I do think it's why a lot of people are here online wondering about their partners, because they have to write that story now. They have to, they need to understand what the fuck they went through. When I had my ego death, I had to understand what the fuck I went through. Why would something so awful happen to me? Was there a point? Was there a purpose? You know, why? And when I came to that conclusion, it helped.
Yeah, I think it's like the anger thing that you said. There's a valid, everything is valid. Because if things exist and there's some, even the defense mechanisms, there's like a positive intention. So there's valid things. It's just there's a point where it starts hurting, you know, and then you have to like go on to like the next level, you know, to the next phase of whatever you're dealing with. Okay.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you want to talk about this more, but we kind of talked about drugs. Do you want to go into how drugs affect your mental state? Do they help or hinder you? Do you want to say anything else about this? Or do you feel you kind of covered it?
Sure. I'll just add real quick. I mean, alcohol made symptoms worse. Great. So yeah, we're staying away from that. I have a glass of wine in a while. I think that genuinely, I do want to throw out there that I think it's harder, not impossible, but harder to treat any, like, you know, psychological suffering when a person's also, you know, when they have substance issues, because you don't know what's the disorder and what's the substance anymore. The substance can also make symptoms worse, and it's really difficult. So someone who was really serious about healing, like me, like, and not just that, like trying to find out what really works to heal NPD. Not like I wanted to cut out everything else, first of all, because it was making me suffer more. Alcohol perpetuates depression in the long run and anxiety, and those are often comorbid. And I just wanted to see, like, my natural, like, what is this like to suffer from naturally without any of this extra stuff? And then how can I spot those symptoms and heal from that? And I do think that drugs can complicate that a lot. And it's hard. Yeah, it's really, people are also using that to cope with pain. So it's like, it's almost like really...
Yeah, it's well, you know, we're having a nuanced conversation because we talked about the potential therapeutical benefits of certain types of drugs, but also like most.
Weed makes me hella paranoid. In fact, weed gave me cannabis psychosis twice. Worst experience. It's not for me, but you know, for someone else it'll work. I don't know. It's funny because Jacob's the same way. Paranoia and weed. Who knows? Paranoia and weed.
Okay.
It's yeah.
How do you associate? I don't even know what this question meant, but let me read it and see if it makes sense. How do you associate any trouble you've been through with development of your NPD? I guess I'm talking about like, what do you attribute developing NPD to?
Oh, honestly, it's I'll try to shorten it because it's a lot. I think just first off, I think that personality disorders are CPTSD at the core with a defense. So you have to develop CPTSD, you have to go through a lot of traumas, right? Mine in particular, I feel like was humiliation. I think shame and humiliation to an extent where I realized that my past self was ugly, to be honest, for real, like ugly and cringy and just worthless in every single way. And I had this proven to me multiple times throughout my childhood through different experiences, you know. And I decided to just abandon that person and just create a new self. And that was my choice of coping. And I think that led to, I hope I'm not cutting out. Because, yeah, you're cutting
I can
Am I good?
hear you. Am I cutting out?
Okay, good. You just froze a little. I just want to make sure, you know, people could hear me. But yeah, I think that because I made the choice to deal with my trauma by being like, yeah, you know, my past self is actually worthless, I'm just going to replace them. That's why I developed this particular defense mechanism, because what I did was I spent the rest of my teenage years systematically, quite honestly, repressing any old personality traits of my past self and replacing them. And I had to replace them with something. So I like looked to celebrities, I looked to people who were admired, I looked at like, how can I be, you know, the person everyone wants? And why did I do this? Because there were years in childhood, just year after year after year of watching other people getting accepted, watching other people getting admired, watching other people laugh and have fun. And then you go home, right? And it's not any better at home. You know, you're not able to talk about your emotions. There's no safe space. If you cry, it's like, well, just shape up, you know, just deal with it. And then if you're not strong enough to deal with it in your parents' eyes, you're also shameful. You're also a failure. You know, there's nowhere you can run. There's nowhere you can feel good. And eventually, I mean, before I made the choice to like destroy my past self, I isolated, like, you know, basically they isolated for a lot of years. Near, you know, through middle school and the early high school, just like there's a lot of fantasy going on as well, because like if you can't feel safe in the real world, fantasy gives you vicarious power. You can live through characters and television and experiences, and honestly some of that was the basis for who I developed myself into. I was like, oh shit, like I want to be adored, I want to be powerful, I want to be, you know, everything I was never seen as. And like I literally, that's how I chose to cope. And, you know, I always tell people though, they're like, oh, so that's what messed up your identity. And I'm like, no, by the time I decided to replace myself, I'm pretty sure my identity was already pretty messed up. And that in itself points to like, how young did I feel like I didn't have a safe space? You know, at what age did I feel in some ways like my parents weren't comfortable with their own emotions, and therefore they couldn't reflect anything to me, if that makes sense. So maybe I was like, from the get-go, it was just like, it was over, you know, like I never really had like, I don't know. I think that the final straw comes when you go through trauma outside the home, and then you come home and then there's no safe space there, and then you're left and to process things alone, and things that no child could ever process. And something kind of just like snaps. Sorry,
no, yeah. This is what we're here for, to get depressed. Not just kidding. to understand, you know what I'm saying? It's important for people to tell their stories, so people finally understand and start identifying themselves as well. Because it's like in my public, of course there's a bunch of narcissists. Children of narcissists, no one's going to be a narcissist in that group. Come on. That makes no sense. Right?
Yeah. It's rough. Yeah. And the thing is also, and I forgot to mention this part, but there's a bitterness too that I think is very specific to NPD that grows, where you are bitter at the people who got everything, who you had to watch. And that's where I can't speak for other narcissists, but my lack of empathy, and it's not a total lack of empathy, by the way, we'll get to that in the myths section, but empathy started being really impaired, the more I just felt people were dangerous, the more I shut off to them emotionally. I started not being able to like feel. I would look at somebody crying and it was just a person with tears, you know, like there's no like emotion. You shut down, you put a wall up. So from that point, it gets easier to just look at a person and just, you don't feel what they're feeling. You don't care. And then there's another layer of bitterness where you're like, fuck you. No one ever gave this to me. Why do any of you deserve anything? You know, I'd take it from you in a heartbeat. You know, I'm here now. I'm getting what I want. It's almost like a defensiveness that's just so angry about like suffering so deeply while everyone else, you know, watching other people get what you needed year after year. It's like, there is a very dark, you know, and I'm still trying to let go of that.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
what you said about empathy is interesting because when I hear so many people's stories, the most common story isn't, oh, I never felt anything. The most common story is it slowly, gradually shut down.
Yes. My child self was embarrassingly, honestly, I love how you snap to that word, but yeah, embarrassingly like emotional. My parents never knew what to do with that. It was like, why is this child so much, you know? And like I think my past self tried every single trauma response, including fawn, before just deciding it was over. Because fawn is also, you suck up to somebody, you're like, you're trying to please them and this and that. Even that got my past self shamed. So I was like, fuck you. That's when I really said, fuck you all, every single one. Like that was the point where I was like, okay, none of it, you know, like, and it wasn't always like that.
So you went to the defense that worked.
It wasn't always like, yeah.
Okay. Well, sure. I guess you kind of already said this, but this is something that Brazil needs to understand. In your point of view, how do cluster B personality disorders function? What is the link between them? Like, I'm talking about people saying stuff like NPDs and can't have BPDs, and BPDs can't be antisocial, you know, stuff like that.
It's okay. I'm gonna pull the Western psychology in here a little bit, but in this like weird like Western world that we've developed into, there's an obsession with labels, and like honestly, labels are just labels. When you take it away, it's just different people showing different traits of different defense mechanisms. And I believe there's a core that is the same, which is the CPTSD. It's some sort of severe trauma that has happened again and again and again. And the person, because of their temperament, perhaps, which is genetics, because of their particular traumas, the age it happened, you know, whatever, they chose to go towards a certain defense mechanism. And people can absolutely have multiple defense mechanisms. They can have, it's really a blending at that point. I mean, cluster Bs are so similar as well. If you look in between, BPD and NPD can look the same sometimes on the outside in multiple ways. It's only when you dig under there that you see like, okay, the reason behind the behavior. Like, for example, you can see, and I'm just going to make up one scenario, and not everyone with NPD and BPD will even do this, but it's like, okay, I did this thing where I tried to isolate my partner from his friends, right? Because I felt challenged, I felt threatened. I was worried, like in my head, it was like, well, what if one of his friends is more attractive? What if one of his friends is smarter? Like, what if one of his friends is more of the life of the party, you know? And I felt so threatened. And also I'm going to be honest, I was really angry and probably envious of his ability to just connect to people. It hurt a lot. It was a deep pain that I think I denied even to myself. So I just like didn't want any of it. And
she's a support cat.
Totally.
Completely random little ears. She's here for support.
Yeah. But anyway, like that was my reasoning behind that. While someone with BPD might do the same behavior, but for a fear of abandonment. I need to keep my partner from meeting, like totally different. Like the reasoning behind it.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense? Is a different trauma and a different you know, and sometimes people can have multiple traumas, so they will have all of those defenses and all of those reasons. It's never that cut and dry. That's just what the Western world wants to throw out there, is like boxes, labels, this and that. You know?
That's why it's important to listen
Yeah.
to people who actually have the disorders, right? And not just list, right?
Yeah.
People are like, but wait a second, I'm looking at a list here. What do you mean I have to look at humans? That makes no sense. It's like,
It's crazy. Can I just throw it out there? This upsets me so much, and I try to handle it maturely, but people come into my comments, they're like, well, you don't look like my narcissist and you don't seem evil, so therefore you can't have NPD. Or they're like, well, you're self-aware, so, you know, since my narcissist wasn't, you can't have NPD. Or like, you know, it's like they feel invalidated, so they invalidate me, and I'm like, oh, god damn it, you know. Like, first of all, there's no one person with NPD. Every person is so, you know, has such a rich, you know, cultural background and like this and that and like wants and hopes and dreams. Like, you're not going to get
sure.
textbook boxes of people anyway, and like, you know, they come on my page, it's frustrating, you know. And or if they see like me saying something that is hard to hear, like, for example, it's not calculation, you know, most of the time it's the person's hurt and they don't want to hear that because it was hard to leave their ex. They're like, no, you're just not a narcissist then, because you're saying like, you know. I'm like, oh man, it's a mess, and I don't know really what to do sometimes, but I just try to work with everybody and help everyone understand everybody, because it's hard.
But you know, bit by bit, and also understanding that no one's ever going to please everybody, and people come onto your page without really doing their due diligence, without really going deep into things, so they're just going to throw stuff out there. Like, I get two groups of haters. On the one side, it's like, I come from a religious country, so you can't badmouth your parents. So it's like, oh, you're destroying families. And then on the other side, it's like, how dare you interview narcissists? You're interviewing the monsters. So I can't support narcissists in treatment, but I also can't like mention that narcissists exist at the same time. It's a weird.
No, that's okay. Don't they want people with NPD to be in? What is that about? Like, be happy that like people are in treatment. Like, why are you discouraging?
I think one of the things is it's got to do with the cognitive distortions and the lack of clear thinking that codependents have as well, which is like, dude, like,
oh my god,
I get it because I'm a recovering codependent, but it's like, we want narcissistic people to be in treatment. We want them to have non-stigmatizing, efficient spaces and information. At the same time, you don't have to stick by that one person that was the narcissist in your life that is not aware, that doesn't care. They're different people. People are projecting their personal experiences onto things, right? And they also believe, because you guys, they think you calculate everything, that the only reason you go to therapy is to calculate how you're going to better manipulate. Now, mind you, I have had a number of narcissistic patients who did not admit to being narcissists, and they did manipulate. But that's not everybody. It's not that they were calculating. It's just that they use the therapy to triangulate it. They go back home and say, like, my therapist said that I'm right and you guys are wrong. And that's how they triangulate it. You understand?
That's not. What sucks is that's not even real self-awareness. It's like, oh, it's like they're self-aware, but I don't know. It's also like the quick labeling of people as narcissists really bothers me. It's like, because really, and this is controversial, but I'm going to throw this out here. What I think has happened in society is that the criteria for abuse has become the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. Now, I don't know how that happened, but it's causing absolute chaos, and it's a difficult thing, because I don't know what to do with that. I mean, I think that it's the best thing that people can do is just address like mostly the individual behaviors that their partner's doing, and really just ask themselves, like, in general, should I tolerate this? You know, can I tolerate this? Is this person working with me? Because the thing is, like, I've been able to have healthier relationships finally, because I was finally able to communicate for the first time. And there's, you know, a fear of communication. For people with NPD, it's vulnerable. It's really scary to, like, actually tell somebody what you're experiencing and suffering, because what if they're like, who cares? Like, you know, your parents may have, or, like, your society may have. Who wants to go through that shame again after, like, you know, who wants to expose themselves like that? It is terrifying. But if you can like learn coping mechanisms to do that, communication can make any relationship work. It's just really hard to like, you know, the person has to, yeah, want to change, and the person has to like, you know, like, because I still have NPD. It's not like I'm suddenly magically not a narcissist. I still struggle every day with this trauma, with this stuff, with these mechanisms, and it takes all my energy to fight it. And, you know, sometimes I don't fight it and it wins. It wins. And I have to tell my partner, I'm like, hey, this is why I will do this. This is, you know, if I do this thing, here's what it means. And, you know, he's bipolar. So like, as someone else with a mental illness, he has to do the same thing for me. Like,
communication,
oh, this,
man.
you know, blah, blah, blah. It's just people communicate. Yeah, that's what it turns into.
Absolutely.
But it's, the person has to be willing. So if they're not willing to work and communicate, no matter who they are, no matter what diagnosis they have, if they're not willing to sit down and be like, here's my part in this, I take responsibility for like this, you know, and it comes from shame, you know, it's a lot of shame. Like people feel like taking responsibility for a bad behavior is like saying I am bad. And I believe that because that's what my parents and society had taught me. And I had to escape that first to even be self-aware, let me tell you, because like you have to be able to tell yourself, okay, this is my defense mechanisms making me act out. So therefore, you know, I as a person am not worthless, bad, terrible, monstrous, whatever. But it is also my responsibility, and it's unfair and it sucks, but it is my responsibility if I want relationships in my life to, you know, to do the thing and treat people with respect who I want to keep around. And like, you know, you have to, you know, entitlement can also take you out of that too, where it's like, oh yeah, well they should just do it because it's me. You know, but reality
it sure will.
Fucking ass.
Reality's like, nope, we're not having that. I just want to reiterate something that you said that I really believe, and this is going to be like bombastic for people, which is like, so long as people don't want to work on their stuff, it doesn't matter if they're codependent or narcissist or bipolar or whatever, it's not going to happen. However, because I have seen it, I do believe there is tremendous healing to be had. And when the codependents of the world learn how to communicate their boundaries and heal themselves, and the narcissists of the world learn how to communicate, and the two learn how to communicate and take ownership for their part of things, I think relationships are a place for healing when communication and self-responsibility.
Yes, they are. Yeah, and you can always assess, like, is this more toxic than it is healing? And, you know, you can choose to leave situations. And, like, can I just throw something out there that I feel like for a long time, I think it would be very helpful for codependents or even, like, borderlines, anybody with abandonment issues or, like, stress about that. My current partner struggles with this. He would not tell me, he would not communicate with me either, because he thought in his head, if I say one thing to her about my stress or my day, she's gonna up and leave. She's gonna like leave me, you know? She's not gonna want to be with somebody who's so stressed all the time or has like these issues. And I looked at him and I said, you've been hiding that? Like, and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, you know, and I come from my ego side and I'm like, dude, if someone ever, like, if that's all it took for somebody to walk away from me, is just me telling them a little stressor that I was going through, I would say, yeah, there's the door, see ya, bye, you know, you clearly don't deserve me, you know. And it blew his mind, because in his head he was like, well, I have to. And I was like, dude, what would that get you in the end? You would be walking on eggshells forever. And sure, maybe you quote unquote keep the relationship, but is that even a person you want in your life? Somebody who would just leave or like punish you over a stressor? Like, is that really something, you know? So it's almost like I never realized the work to do on the other side, because I don't have abandonment issues. I struggle, if anything, to connect to people ever and like form a connection deep enough to have abandonment issues.
That makes sense.
So I'm seeing it, and I'm seeing it on the other end, like, holy shit, these people are also like
codependency is a bitch. And I gotta tell you, it's like you feel like any of your needs are a burden, and you need to shut up. Otherwise, literally, if you blink the wrong way, you're gonna be abandoned. You know, it's the fawn response that we get stuck into, right? Like and we can't see anything else.
Yeah, that is crazy to me, because, like, you know, it's once again like the other side of the spectrum, and I'm looking at it across the room, And I just recently told my partner, I was like, hey, you want to make a pact and you'll just yank me to the middle this way and I'll yank you to the middle that way. And like, we'll meet in the middle of all this crazy shit. Cause like my thing is like, I don't appreciate people enough. I end up like thinking like, because of like what I've been through and also how hard I've worked on myself. I get this thought in my head where I'm like, I have worked so much, so hard to be this amazing, this perfect. So I should just have all these things. And, you know, it's hard to like, I don't know, like really it's, besides it being hard to connect to people, it's hard to appreciate what is going on in the relationship. You know, it's hard to see what people are doing. Like, that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. It's harder. It's almost like, I have to watch myself in another way where I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to explain this the best I can, but it's like, sometimes I feel like I'm doing a completely normal relationship and somebody will come to me and say like, I feel neglected. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Well, as
Does
an
that make
autistic
sense?
person, yes.
Yeah.
all of my past boyfriends were like, they said some really confusing stuff to me. They're like, you're so incredibly loving and responsible, but you're also the coldest person I've ever met. And I'm like, what the? How does that make sense?
Yeah. Honestly, that's so funny. And it's more about attachment styles, really. You know, the avoidant, whatever.
And then I was like, oh, you mean that I have to interact with you and not be hyper-focused on my special interests all day for you to feel like you exist? Well, that just blew my mind. Why don't you have hobbies?
Oh my God. That's so, oh man. You know what's crazy about that too? It's like people don't even think, like, you know, more people than just people with NPD can struggle with that shit. Like, you know, yeah. It's not like
we're all a little screwed in the head, right? Anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
What would you say to teenagers who have noticed they're developing NPD?
Oh my God. You don't want this.
That's a good message.
Run the other way if you have a chance. You have a chance. Oh my God, it melted my heart because, like, you know, there was a 15 or 16-year-old on my live stream who actually reached out and messaged me saying, I think you've stopped me from developing this because like because of your page, I became self-aware. And I literally like, I was like, holy shit. You know, like I'm never grateful enough for like realizing how much I have an effect because my, you know, honestly, there's this internal voice inside me that's like, it's never enough. I want more followers. I want more this and that. When I actually stop to appreciate those connections, like the effect that I'm actually having, it's like mind blowing. Cause like, you know, yeah, what I would say, number one, yeah, you don't want this. You don't want to go down this road. It is fucked. It is painful. It is scary. And you're going to have to dig yourself out eventually if you ever want, like, you know, to feel God love in this lifetime. There's so many barriers. If you want to feel alive, you know, there's so many things you're going to have to break down and you want to dig out as fast as possible. And the other thing I would say is that honestly, there is hope. I know it doesn't look like it, but I'm here, you know, that's what I can say. At least I'm here, like trying to figure this stuff out. I've already tried mapping out NPD, like all the roadblocks for self, for relationship, for everything. I'm going to make this giant map of like everything that's stopping somebody with NPD feeling okay. Because it's a tangled mess. And like, I'm here. You can always come talk to me. And, you know, I would say if you already have developed certain defenses, the hardest thing I had to learn was that emotions were not weak. Okay. And that's like something I feel like people with NPD that are slowly developing that. I've actually seen it in my middle brother, and that's the story for another time. And that's sad. Already pretty, yeah. But like I've seen the emotions are, you know, if you go down that road, the shame's just going to get worse and worse for facing anything in your life. And that's when it traps you. Because if you can't face your regular emotions because you've taught it that it's shameful, you're going to be so repressed. I still struggle with that. I would say
no, that's
sorry, I have so much.
That's wonderful.
It's
wonderful.
I would say try to understand that, you know, you as a person are beautiful and worthy, and that, you know, your defenses are not you. if you can separate that, you know, that's really good for healing, because it takes away the shame. It says like, okay, hey, this trauma is attacking my life, keeping me from what I deserve. How can I fight back at it? You have to turn it into something you're fighting back at, rather than fighting against the world or other people. Because like, for me, honestly, rock bottom really came when I realized for the first time nobody could actually heal the pain. I looked to other people for so long. I said, like, if I find the perfect partner, and then when the partner didn't turn out to be perfect or exactly the way I wanted, I would get mad. You know, I tried to control them and make them into that for me so I could feel okay. It was never working. You know, the world, reality can only change so much. And it's depressing as fuck when you hit that point and you realize, oh, this is actually how reality works. You know, like, I can wish it was whatever I want it to be, but it's never going to be that. And, you know, I went through this really deep depression about that. And sometimes I still get bitter, you know, at the world and at other people. I'm like, you should just be better, be more interesting, be whatever. I'm so bored. I'm so depressed. This sucks, whatever. But at some point you got to just let go, and you have to say like, okay, I have to find a way to try and be happy. And by the way, don't take it sitting down either. I think the world still sucks. I think that it should be changed. I think there's a lot wrong with it. But, you know, you have to realize nobody is going to fill that hole but you. And that's also really difficult, you know?
Yeah, that's
I don't know.
very, very lucid. And the whole thing about, I've heard Jacob say this as well, like it's not about, even when you do achieve your goals, you can't hold on to it.
Yeah.
Because of the voice, it's just never enough. It's just never enough. It's just never enough. It's just never enough.
If I could, let me tell you, I still have grandiosity, but if I could hold on to everything that I've done, I'd be like, I'd believe I was fucking like a goddess or something. I would be like, oh shit, if I could fully self-realize that shit. But no, I am humbled every time because it slips away. And I'm constantly questioning everything. I can go on 1 million live streams and like people afterwards will tell me you were charming and well-spoken. And then like the next live stream, I'm like, am I charming and well-spoken? I have to ask again because I'm insane, because I can't hold on to it. Because like, it's like the ultimate sugar high. It never hits fully and you just need more, and then you feel sick and it sucks. And like, I think it's because you're not really feeding the part that's really hurt the most. It's like a Band-Aid. You're covering that shit up with a Band-Aid, you know? And also it's partly also the fragmentation of the self, the inability to like, just everything slips away. In fact, that's the scariest fucking part of this disorder. I haven't really talked about this, but when you mentioned like how have drugs like affected your life, I've actually started taking shrooms just to be able to like hold on to anything. Like, I used to learn lessons. I used to have realizations, and like this window would open in my life and I'd be like, oh shit, I'm actually suffering, or like, oh fuck, this thing that I'm doing is like hurting me, or like, oh, like I'd realize something about another person, like, oh, this is what love should be, or like whatever. 3 days would go by, it was gone from my awareness. Like, I don't know why still, but I could not emotionally learn anything, and that keeps you at ground. You can't grow. You can't move. You're trapped in this construct that sends you down to the floor level every single time you wake up every single day. And that's terrifying. I started having panic attacks over realizing that I was truly trapped. And the only way I've really been able to find to get out of that was actually taking shrooms. And this is controversial, and I'm not promoting drugs, okay? I've also been able to achieve it more now without taking shrooms, but I had 20 plus shroom trips, just trying to, like, every time I learned something new and I was like, I'm gonna need to remember this, I would take a shroom trip and like meditate on it. I would think about it. I would just let whatever emotions it caused like wash over me, because I was desperate to get out. Like, you end up feeling like you're trapped in a hole, like a groundhog day that's just,
I
like,
think
endless.
I think that when drugs are used in a therapeutic way, the whole point is for you to access something that you cannot access at all. It's not real for you at all in your normal state. And then you try to bring that on over to reality because it's there somewhere. Like, we can't just be this freaking little self state. You know what I'm saying? Or these couple little self states that we alternate between. So I mean, come on, consciousness has got to be a lot more than my little mind or anyone's little mind thinks.
I don't know where it goes. I mean, where has every compliment I've ever gotten gone? Where does it go? Like, where's the hole? Because I'll plug that up right away if I knew where it was, but I can't find it. And I'm like, I always felt like, okay, if I tell myself, if enough people tell me this, I'll really believe it. But that turned out not to be true, because I guess in my head, and I think a lot of people with NPD struggle with this, there's a fundamental lack of trust in like your new sense of self, because you kind of know you built it. You kind of know you really manually like edited yourself. And I think people are always worried that there's like, let's say you go out in a social situation, all of a sudden, you know, your new sense of self just like falls apart and exposes like something shameful. I don't know, like there's this lack of trust that like this new self is you.
That makes perfect sense.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So like there's all this, yeah, so there's all this micromanaging going on every second of every day, just trying to like present properly, because you're afraid if you let go of control that you're gonna like fall apart in front of people, humiliate yourself, and then I guess die.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Emotionally
like,
speaking, yeah.
Like, yeah, and like, oh, it's not always emotional. It's sad, but sometimes there's actually quite a high suicide rate with NPD. But you know, we'll go at another time. But it's if people with NPD could learn to trust their mind and their body more to perform, like this is you now, okay? Like you're okay. You're not just gonna suddenly wake up and you're your past self again or something. That's a very real fear. Jacob's expressed that fear to me. You know, it's not just like an offhand thing. A lot of people experience that, and I'm thinking like, what if it's a fundamental, lack of trust, you're dissociated from your sense of self almost, like you don't know. And that's why you need constant reassurance. Like, am I really charming? Tell me again. Like, how was I charming? I used to ask people for whole essays. Like, it was insane. I was like, just describe to me in great detail everything about myself, because I can't.
You know, I wonder. Well, I wonder if the dissociation from other aspects of your own emotional experience actually make you want to get that high from the external validation, when really what I think any human being wants is to feel good. They want to feel that peace.
Yes. Oh my. It's all about feeling okay. Yeah. Everything that I do is feeling okay. And for me, I missed Grand a lot because it was the safest space. It was honestly one of the only times I felt okay and powerful, and like I was in control of my mental health and my situation, and like it's been really hard, you know. It's all about feeling okay. It's always about that. You know.
I have can you go on for a little bit more? Are you tired? Is it okay for you? Are you hungry? Okay, awesome. Okay,
absolutely good. Yeah.
So the people are asking questions and stuff, but I don't want to get off track. I want to go back and look at some of the questions later on if you're still up to it. But I think I have to pee. So can you just stay there and entertain people? If you see any interesting questions.
Do you want me to do yeah, give me a topic, because I
okay, so I'll give you a topic. Oh man, you want me to look at one of the questions or one of the topics here? Because I actually want to hear what you're going to say about the topic here. Actually, you know what? I've heard you talk about this a lot, so I'm going to give you another question that I don't have to listen to. I can listen to it later. And then I'll ask you the question that I want to listen to when I come back from my toilet trip. The question is, what are the difficulties and benefits of self-awareness? Is that okay?
Oh.
Okay, I'll be right back. Hold on.
That's a good one. Yeah. Okay, so honestly, I would say you can get to a point with your NPD where you almost feel like when you were self-aware, you were more powerful. But I've actually found, and I think this is really important, that self-awareness gives you more control over, you know, your self-state than you've ever had before. Because like when you're unself-aware, you're kind of just like wandering in the dark blindly, and like something happens to you and then you just react, and it's like your defenses immediately react, and you don't even have the opportunity to fight against that, because like let's just say the defense is maladaptive and like it's not actually getting you what you want. Oh, thank you guys for the hearts. It's like you don't even know why, because like there's a fundamental lack of like, why did I just do that? You know, like I don't get it. What am I even feeling? You know, there's like I don't remember what it's called. Is it like alexithymia? It's this like inability, because you've repressed your emotions for so long, to know what you're even feeling. let alone why you're feeling it, let alone why you're doing a defense or behavior. And like, that gives you no control. You're just the slave of your disorder at that point. You're the slave of, yeah, thank you guys for the hearts. So supportive. See, this is what I need this right now. Yeah, alexithymia. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Thank you, April. But it's actually so fucking beautiful and invigorating to actually realize why you do stuff, because then you have the option to stop it and do another behavior if your automatic response is not going to get you what you need. Or, B, you just, I don't know, you can, yeah, it's about curbing it. It takes, even if you know why you do something and you have a personality disorder, it takes all the strength in the world to fight it, because these are ingrained defenses. And he's back.
I'm back.
But yeah, I was getting a lot of very happy.
Okay,
I basically
cool.
explained the question.
Cool.
I think we're good.
So what I actually want to hear you talk about is your relationship. I want to know about how your relationship has helped you with healing, if it has, if so, how, whatever you want to say about that.
Yeah, so I've had like 3 major relationships in my life. The first one was just awful. The second one was my 5-year relationship with my ex, and I wanted to do that one first because he did change my life. He was with me the 2 years that I was unself-aware, when I was diagnosed, during my ego death, and after, probably for 3 more years. So it was a long-ass road. He was there for all of it. Yeah, and he really influenced. I mean, he showed me, he knew by month 2. I think he had a narcissistic mom. He saw traits in me, and he would like jokingly mention it. But I just thought he was like, I don't know, you don't know there's a whole disorder behind a word, or what that means. But like, he knew, and he always accepted me, and it was insane to like. And honestly, I now that I've really broken down quite a bit, I regret a lot of things, because I think he took a lot of shit for 5 years. I think that I was very unhealed and very hurt, and he probably stayed when he shouldn't have. But even then, he would always say, like, I accept you. I love you, I accept your diagnosis, I accept that you're working on these things. But he would say to me, like, you're still hurting me, like, you need to do something about this, you need to do something different. And I would try, but like, I honestly don't think that I gave it the respect I should have. So like, in hindsight, that was fucked to like realize that. And I reached a point where I realized just how much he had done for me, and how many times he had like supported me even when I was this is hard, I'm sorry. God, you get to that point where you're like, holy fuck. I believe he was the first person to teach me what love probably really is. I don't think I've ever really experienced love in a past life sense. I feel like even in my past lives, I was a little shit. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I think this is my first life where I think this is my first lifetime where I'm really like learning, because it feels new as hell. It feels like I am really learning like what like what love really is. And like him sticking around. And here's the thing, I don't like saying this because there are people who I don't want to give false hope to, and that fucking sucks. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want to say like, oh yeah, stay with them, they'll realize.
It's a challenge to talk about these things. It definitely is.
It is challenging, and I don't even know how to go about it. I really need to think about that long and hard, because in my opinion, and this is what I believe real love is like me being able to look back and say, he should have left when I was doing those things for years on it. Like, he hurt himself really bad because I was out of control, because I was really hurt, because I was like, and I don't even blame myself anymore. I can say this without shame, because I know it's not my soul, my energy core, whatever moves through multiple lifetimes. That is not my defenses. My defenses fucked shit up, and I can accept that now, because that's not me. It was this, I went through shit, I got hardened by the world, but I still regret it. It taught me a lot. I don't know, like, my relationships have changed my life. I'm going to move on to my current one now, who's, he's also changed my life. So my current boyfriend, I obviously left my ex, and then I started this new relationship, and he guessed I had NPD. I have never told anybody. I could never say it. I was never ever gonna say it because I didn't want to face that rejection and then get angry or ruminate about it for years, so he just found out, and that like paved that path. So then I decided to like try things out with him. And I'm sorry, I have to address this. Why do people say narcissists don't regret? Is it a myth? 5-second answer.
Sure, it's okay.
I'm sorry. Regret. Okay. People with NPD can experience regret. I think guilt is harder because the brain has been trained from childhood, honestly, by very critical parents or peers to immediately justify, to put pain away. So guilt is different than regret. Regret is different than shame. They're all kind of there. Regret is something that I think I never told my partner. In the tiny little moments I would experience it because it felt pathetic. So you don't know if a person with NPD often ever regretted anything because like they might not tell you. And then you're just going to assume they don't care. And there's an even more fucked part of this where I could feel care, and then like 3 hours later, I would look back at the same situation or person and feel like apathy. And that would fuck me up because I would wonder to myself, like, and that's the fragmentation where I was like, did I ever care? Would I care? Can I care? It's gone now. This is confusing for even me. So in the moment, it felt genuine, but then 3 hours later, it's like I have no connection to that moment. And it's, yeah. I just want to explain that real quick. Anyway, on to my current relationship.
That's
I just get
fine.
triggered. My current relationship, he already knew, he guessed, so that paved the way for us being honest. But honestly, I don't know, like, it's been the healthiest, because like, when I started, we've only been dating really this year for 6 months. And in that time period, I've been really self-aware. So we started on that note. And honestly, the challenges in this relationship, I feel like, have been learning how to communicate healthily for the first time, really like hashing that skill out. And also, I still have problems with connecting to people. And he knows this. He's in love with me. And I haven't really been able to reach that point yet because I'm still struggling. And he knows that. And that's the thing, is like, there are people out there who will accept you and work with you on this, because I have been able to reach a sense of connection with him, especially through spirituality, where I'm like, which was really, really healing. And it's just more like proof of like acceptance, which I think acceptance can be one of the most healing things anybody can ever experience in their life. And also I appreciate people who are willing to say like, like he'll reality check me. Like I feel safe enough to come to him and be like, is this like, what's the real situation here? Like if I get triggered or something, I can say like, how does this look to you on the outside? Because he doesn't have NPD. You have to trust somebody though. Oh, that's another thing. This relationship, I feel like, is teaching me about trust for the first time. I've never trusted anybody in my life. I don't even remember ever being able to trust somebody ever. So this is the first time. In fact, I distrusted people so deeply that I wouldn't even believe their word. I would need to like test. I would put people, okay, and I'm not proud of this, but I would put people in scenarios. And this is probably the most calculative thing I've ever done, but it was just to figure it out because I didn't trust people. I would put them in scenarios where I would say something with the intention of like causing a reaction. And then apparently that reaction was going to tell me what the person really felt and thought, because of course I couldn't trust what they said, because growing up, I was taught people are going to lie, betray you, blah, 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 whatever. So, I can't do that in this relationship though. So I've been facing some really stressful feelings, and I'm lucky to have somebody who will sit through them with me and say like, you're valid for this. I understand. Like, I don't take it personally, but like, this, you have to try and trust people, and my near-death experience taught me like, at least even if reincarnation is real in the end, this is, I only have this one lifetime as me right now. do I really want to spend the rest of it without experiencing like love, without experiencing trust, without experiencing whatever? I was willing to take more risks. And like, yes, my boyfriend is just like amazing and like seriously helps me sift through all of this stuff while like, you know, being validating and stuff. And I think that helps people who've never been validated, including like codependents, like have a lot of this trauma too, where it's like, you need to find somebody who says like, hey, you're not acting crazy right now. You're not being too emotional. This is totally making sense after what you've been through. It makes sense. You know, you may feel crazy, but think of the places you were pushed as a child. Think of the things that were done to you. You have every right to feel this emotion right now. And, you know, I'm here for you. Like, those people can change your life.
Would you say that that's what allowed you to build that trust, is you guys hashing it out, those difficult moments, whilst he was validating? So there's like a loving space for the difficult stuff to be inside and for you to process that. Would you say that's what built the trust?
Yes. And also, he is like water. That man is like water. If I'm fire, he's water. He doesn't react to anything. I'm going to be honest. There's been a few times in this relationship where I got re-triggered. And by the way, I want to throw out the idea here that, you know, the rage of a narcissist, you know, the narcissistic rage or whatever, it's a PTSD response. It's the fight response, right? I triggered, he'd say some little thing that made me feel either like, you know, helpless as I had as a child, unimportant, maybe feelings of worthlessness, something scary. And, you know, the anger wants to come out and cover that up. And I have ranted at him probably 3 times in 6 months, which is pretty good for like where I've been. I used to fight with people every single day. And he just sits there and he's like, yep, you know, he doesn't take it personally. And that was hard for me because I originally was like, wait, so like, why aren't you being affected by me? You know, do I have no impact? Do I have no power? I think that's like the fear of like helplessness. It's really scary, like trauma for a lot of people with NPD, where it sounds fucked up, but it's almost like you need them to react to like prove that you have like the agency to cause people to react because like you're not helpless anymore, right? Like it's almost like validation. It looks fucked up when you're saying to somebody's face like, hey, why aren't you reacting to my insults? Like, it's like, why are you mad right now? You know, but like he's just sat there and he's like, because, you know, I know you're triggered right now, and like in an hour, you know, you won't be like this. And he kept like insistently saying to me like, you know, what's really going on, Tessa? Like, what's really going on? And sometimes I would feel challenged by that, but eventually I would like let it all drop and just be like, okay, this is like what's going on. And he, you know, and he really doesn't take it personally. So I think that now, see, there's a fine line here, and I want to express this really, really carefully. If someone, you know, enabling, right, and healing. So enabling, you can easily fall into that if somebody's just like, well, you should just be here for me and like, you know, ride out these behaviors with me because I'm healing, but then they don't actually put in the work. And you start to see it happen, daily and weekly and whatever. It's different when you're dealing with somebody, you've chosen to love somebody with a mental illness, and you say to yourself, okay, sometimes they're going to act out, but since they're trying, you know, it should, first of all, not be every day. It should be like a once in a while thing. And when it does happen, you can communicate after and decide how to not make it happen next time, right? Like loving somebody, I've started to learn, is not like, it's not that you're never going to snap at each other. It's not that you're never going to hurt each other or say a mean thing or like whatever, even in normal relationships. And, you know, who knows what normal is, but like this happens. So it's your willingness to like watch that line carefully, saying, is this person taking responsibility and trying to, you know, work together with me to make sure these things don't happen, or are they just kind of riding it? And like, so I gotta put my phone on the charger. Give me like one. Yeah, I was like, I'm at 1%. Every time I go live with someone, my phone just dies, and then like I go live. So I don't want this to happen. Yeah. I actually have to take. Oh god damn it! Can I go call my boyfriend real quick? Babe, the charger's not working. Says, I have like 2%.
If I'm not insignificant if I can cause a reaction in someone. What you were explaining about trying to get a reaction.
Jacob, I adore you. Jacob, I adore you. See, look at this. Yes.
Up.
What the? Get out of here. Get out of here.
We love the healthy boyfriends.
who don't react and just like, Tessa, what's really going on?
Dude, that's so great. Do you want guide everyone?
Hey!
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you.
Nice to meet you, Richard.
God.
Nice to meet you.
Not me feeling like I have to image management him, like being like, fix your hair.
Oh, it's fine.
Sorry.
You saved the day. You saved the live.
We also no, honestly, I want to.
Wait, hold up. Where's your sound? Your sound completely disappeared. Okay, I think we're back. Now I can. Now I
Can you hear
can.
me? Yeah. Hey, like joking around. Jacob.
Yeah, fix your hair, man. Yeah, Jacob would say that, right?
Oh my God. Yep. I love it all. I love it. Thank you for all right. Anyway, what were we saying? Yeah, if you can joke around stuff, that helps a lot, because a lot of, first of all, yeah, choosing to love someone with a mental illness, giving them that space to like go through, their traumas and their triggers and stuff, but like watching it and also joking about like stuff that comes up, it really helps. It really helps make light of it. And he's a metalhead.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we'll see. We will see how that goes.
Yeah, but what you're saying is like,
nothing's ever.
I think, in a relationship, two people aren't always well emotionally. So somebody's going to go crazy here one day, and then the other person might go a little bit crazy here, and this one might be more stable or not, whatever. But the deal is, it's a partnership. So if you can be lucid when your partner isn't lucid, and you can bring them back to this place of like, hey, it's okay. Yeah. It's all right. You can have those reactions. But let's just hash it out, though,
Yeah.
Just, it can't overwhelm one person, and that's what happens with codependents. Absolutely. Codependents are like, well, I guess I just have to keep taking it, right? It's like, no, man, that's called enabling. That's distorted thinking. It's going to be hellish for you. The other person is not going to grow. It's because it's like, I don't think it's my responsibility to make narcissists grow. But I think if I can be calm and loving and be like, dude, it's okay that you're having this reaction, but I think there's something else going on here. The person can grow.
Yeah, it takes a lot of like willingness to like admit like that, like, hey, this is like my thing to heal, instead of like expecting the other person to heal it. It's bizarre and it's funny, but codependents and narcissists are almost very similar in that way, where we're expecting to get in a relationship for the other person to take away the pain and heal it in some way. And codependents obviously do this more by being the fixer. It's like, if I can help this person enough, or like if I do this. But it's the same, like, it's the same, like, the other person should take this pain away, and there's like a lack of internal healing sometimes. And that's like, that's when things get
shame-based as well. Codependents feel so much shame as well. And our personalities, it's not a real personality. You're just pleasing and saying yes to people. You don't even know who you are, because you have to just please and please and please and say yes to people. So there is a lack of sense of self as well for codependents, or rather an overinvestment and being validated for being a fixer.
I saw that in my ex. He did, because I was always the one who was like, okay, we're going to go here for dinner tonight. We're going to go out and do this. It's what I want. And he would just go along with it. And it like became him, and everything became like him, and like he was almost like enmeshed with me, and then like this and that. And I've seen, since I've separated from my ex, I have seen him suddenly grow into his own person, and it's been like insane to watch. Like suddenly he's wearing clothes that I never thought he would wear, and I'm like, oh wow, damn, you're finding yourself. And I was jealous too. I was envious, because I'm still really, I'm really like, I'm at the point where it's been really difficult to figure out how to develop an inner sense of self. So I feel a bit like I'm watching him doing it and being like, what the fuck? Like, how are you doing this? But it's definitely a journey that I think is like very important to go through. And I think a lot of things, I don't know if Jacob's still here, but I wanted to mention it's hard, because like when people with NPD try to face this self-discovery journey, they try to do different hobbies, try to find different things, and they just come up bored, and that's scary. It's a a scary feeling of like, well, what if like there is no sense of self to find? What if like, you know, things are that fucked? I don't believe that anymore, but you know, I just wanted to give a little bit of light to that, because like sometimes I ask my friends with NPD, like, well, what else makes you happy besides goals and success? And they're like, oh, I don't know. It's that bad. And then like everything else makes them bored. Where do you go with that? You know, where do you even start? If you try hobbies and they're still boring, if you try, the only thing that I've ever found that's helped me is shrooms.
Well, you can't do that all day though.
No, and you don't want to, and I don't want this is the only way. Do not think that I am perpetuating like drug use here. I'm not selling drugs. I'm not promoting. I'm saying that this is what worked for me, and I'm gonna find better ways of like, I will use this self-awareness to find other ways. I want to use it to find other ways to heal. It can't just be like you stuff yourself with shrooms. That can't be it. And it hasn't even fully worked for me. It really hasn't. It's helped push me forward, but I'm still like lacking a lot of like internal. I still feel very hollow.
As you speak, it reminds me of my sister who, like at 40 years of age, you know, I've been telling her for the past 14 years, I've been building a values-based life, which is like I went through this whole transformation to figure out who I was, what my values were, and then I just made decisions that were aligned with those values, and that took 14 years, and I built a life in relationships and a career and an existence that support those values, and I feel the things I want to feel every single day. And then at 40 years of age, she's like, gee, Tari, after moving around the world all the time because I'm chronically bored and I need to feel something, and, you know, just essentially when I was younger, using my appearance and men to bolster my self-esteem, and honestly, just dealing with debilitating depression for the longest time and not knowing what to do with that, it's crossed my mind that maybe I should get to know my values and build a life based on those values. And I was like, yes, Tessie, yes. I understand that, you know, she said, Tari, I was just running away from pain. That's what I did for the first 4 decades of my life. I was running away from pain. I didn't have time to think about values, you know, and I just used the defenses that I had.
Yeah, absolutely. God, thank you for sharing that. That reminds me, honestly, of a documentary I saw where there was this guy, similarly, just like visited every single place in the world just to like feel something, to like, but like, you know, he ran out of places to go and he had like a breakdown, and like he had to actually find himself at that point. That was like crazy. Yeah, that reminded me of that. And there's definitely something to be said for like, honestly, if I had to guess how to do this, I would say, I think that getting in touch with your emotions for the first time, the emotions will guide you to your real values. And it's going to take a fucked time, especially if, you know, as somebody with NPD, you've learned to live inauthentically. Like, I'm scared now. Like, you mentioned anxiety, and we'll talk about that hopefully, but like, I have more anxiety going out now than I ever did, because like, I can no longer be fake. That sounds ridiculous, but like, I can no longer just be like, oh yeah, you know, like you can, you know, oh, you like this thing? Yeah, like, of course I love it too, because I have no opinion whatsoever. So I have to like fake something emotionally. I can no longer do that because, first of all, I don't have the energy anymore. Self-awareness took that out of me. And second of all, like, I'm in this weird in-between space of like authenticity and like inauthenticity. And it's like, it's the one thing that I feel is like, if you can get in touch with your emotions again, and it's going to take a while of them just sitting around, because like you're so used to being inauthentic, it will guide you eventually to what you want and what you really like to do in life, you know, whatever that is, whatever your purpose here is, more than just getting fame or attention or whatever. But it's not easy.
Yeah, what you said makes perfect sense.
And I'm still
there's this I don't know if the psychologist who's called Sari Gilman, and she's a specialist in boundaries, but she's actually a specialist in getting to know your values, because boundaries are completely personal and subjective, and my boundaries are different from your boundaries because my needs are different from your needs. And she brings this concept of the inner compass, which is really easy to understand. And it's like everyone has an inner compass. You might be more or less in touch with it, right? If you've repressed your emotions your entire life, it's going to be hard for you to feel it. But at the same time, it's also a very simple concept. It's just like at every choice throughout the day, if you pause and you go inside, you can feel your way through whether your inner compass is saying yes or no. So it's like, it's kind of a pain in the ass, but that's how you build a sense of self, because you do have an inner compass. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you know what's crazy? I recently did this New York trip with, like, you know, a few other cluster B leaders, and we were seeing other therapists. There's this mentalization therapist who, I think it was him who said the exact same fucking thing or something, where it was like, you need to be aware of these little moments because they'll guide you. And it's weird at first, but like the little moments are going to tell you what you really care about. And I don't know, like, it's funny. I don't know if I can admit this on here, but I still really struggle with like morals, like what are my morals, this and that. And you know, it's kind of all too easy to just be like, I want this thing in life. And, you know, there's this path I can take, and it's not exactly like what I should probably morally take to get it. But, you know, it's easy, so I'm going to do it. And then you wonder, like, where did that go? And how can I find it? You know, where is it? If that makes sense. Because, like, my brain is just like, well, I just want that thing. So, like, I'm going to go get that thing.
I think there's a couple of things. Number one, there's consequences. So you can be dissociated from the consequences until they hit you in the face. And then you'll have to pause it and go inside a little bit more.
I'm scared of karma now. I think it's so bad. I once joked about this. I don't know if it was with Jacob or someone else, but I was like, you know, the only thing that feels like it's keeping me moral is like my fear of karma. Because like I became spiritual, and then I was like, oh shit, this is karma kicking me in the ass right now. I have to be like, maybe if I stop doing certain things, it won't. And then like I started doing this obsessive thing where I was like thinking, is every action that I'm making, like, is it gonna get me karma? And that's still kind of like, I don't know, that's still kind of like not all there. If that does that make sense? It's like you're the still karma. Worried about like your,
well, you know, according to Sarah Gilman, the thing is, if you follow your inner compass, you're gonna know when you're not supposed to follow the rules, because that's actually better for yourself and society. Like, for example, I'm not a psychologist. And I got a lot of hate for this because I was one of the first people in Brazil who talked about narcissistic family systems, and people just shit on me because they're like, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about this. But the official people weren't talking about it. But my inner compass was like, dude, you know what you're talking about because you went through this, and people need to hear about this stuff. So I gave myself permission to go against the rules and do what I knew was better for me and for the community at large. There's things you're supposed to do that are against the rules because society isn't exactly the most spiritual and deep and intelligent. So sometimes there's a part of us that's antagonistic, but it's wise. Do you understand? It's supposed to be that way. That's different from just being shitty and not thinking about things and you know, just trying to get easy answers. That's different. It's a different thing. It's a courageous path.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy? Yes, it is. And it's super admirable. And it reminds me of, I think it's Carl Rogers, like a very early psychologist who like completely changed the psychology game because people were, you know, viewing it as like, there's a power dynamic, right? Like the psychiatrist and then the patient was viewed as a patient, not a client. There was no respect. And Carl Rogers was just like, I know all of society thinks this way, but none of this is fucking okay. Like none of this feels right. So I'm just going to do something totally different. And then like he changed psychology.
There we go.
That's my goal. That's my ideal.
And that's what you're doing. So that wild part of you, that wild untamed part of you, if it's a part of you, then it exists for a reason, right? So the same part can have an extreme role in your personality that fucks you up because it's full of charged with unprocessed pain. Then it's going to fuck you up because it's going to be extreme and do extreme things. But that same energy can be purified as you integrate it, as you're more aware of it, and you're like, oh, I'm going to use my inner badass. I'm going to use my wild one in a conscientious way because this is what makes sense, and this is what I can contribute.
Yeah. I totally, okay, that's awesome. It's almost like how I tried to use my NPD traits, because like once I realized I was self-aware and I was like, okay. And I was afraid of karma. I was like, how can I like use this for good? You know, like how can I like just chill and hopefully the universe will leave me alone and stop trying to humble me if like I just start doing good things. I'm so scared. I feel like the universe has tried to either kill me or humble me, honestly. Like things keep happening. You know, I got like this horrible, I don't want to go into it, but I went through this horrible like medical thing, and it really was like, oh, you think you're not human, huh? You don't want to be yourself as human? Here you fucking go.
Here's your humanity.
I No, I was like, and I still rejected it. I was like, nah, you know, there's some things I still struggle with, honestly, but like, you know, yeah, life does feel like it's trying to kick my ass. And like, I just kind of hope that if I use my traits for good, it'll stop doing that. And also, I finally found this genuine like rage at like the system. So that's the badass part, as you're saying, that like you need, once you process like the shadow side of yourself, it turns into something good. Because I was like, God, this world fucking sucks, you know? Like the mental health system is shit. Like I have young people with NPD trying to show up and get therapy, and they're ready to heal, and they're in pain and they're lonely. And then the therapist is like, you know, you can't have NPD if you're self-aware. And then they just like doesn't treat them. And I'm like, you just turned away like a fucking, you could have, oh God, you know? And it's not just that, you know? We're still stuck in this Western view of like psychology where it's like, oh, you've got something emotional, like, oh, like have some medicine, you know? It's a brain disorder.
Right.
Depression's your brain, you know? It's not, oh, maybe it's like the old fucking traumas and like crazy, like, you know, we have to really change the way we look at this, because it's just like, yeah.
Absolutely.
But anyway.
Okay, so we have been going on for a long time, but I'm good. If you're still good, we can keep going. Okay, cool. Instagram, don't you dare turn this, like, delete the video. I've done lives where Instagram was like, I'm not gonna save it. Like, fuck you, Instagram. Instagram, you better save this live.
Yeah, oh my God, seriously, that would be devastating. Do you want to like, do you want to make sure, do you want to stop now? How are you feeling? Do you want to make sure do you want to like, we can always do another, if you're willing, you want to do another.
Stop like for today, you like, mean, and like do it at another time, or we can try to go a couple. I don't know if it's the how long we go for it. It's just like Instagram is an ass sometimes. We can just keep going until like you feel that it's over, and then whatever. You're saving it, Instagram. Yeah, come on.
I'm good. I charge my phone because like every time I have to take it off the charger because this is the only charger I have, and like I want you to be able to hear me, so I keep trying to charge it as you're talking. Yeah, we can try to go for a little bit longer if you want. If you
it's okay, we can go a little bit long. I was gonna sing because I also sing, and I was gonna meet a friend and sing with him, but I think it's too late. But it's cool. We keep on with the live because this is good. I'm inspired. So okay. Oh yeah, this is a good question. I don't know. What makes you feel safe? What type of people make you feel safe? What types of experiences make you feel safe or safer?
This is gonna, oh man. So I'm not playing, I hate this. Okay, the stigma says stuff, right? Like, oh, you know, narcissists prey on quote unquote empaths or like empathic people. And I hate that. But to my extent, I feel very safe with empathetic people. And I think that's why I kind of like gravitate. Also, they're so fascinating to me. Because like it's the opposite of me in a lot of ways. It's like the same enough, but then it's also like I'm fascinated by how deeply, you know, they feel, and like that makes me feel safe because the other person, besides being beautiful and like the emotions being beautiful, is also vulnerable, and that makes me feel like I can come from a place of power and safety and like be their protector and like, you know, whatever. And also a lot of times I still really struggle with trust issues, right? So knowing that somebody can't lie to me is pretty important. Somebody can't betray me. And a lot of times if people are empathetic, they'll show like guilt, or they won't be able to lie because of guilt. And like that makes me feel safe. So, you know, that's the type of person I feel like. Sorry if that's controversial, but honestly, other things that make me feel safe, I just feel like it's kind of fucked up, but being alone, because people, and I don't like being alone at the same time. My trauma has really messed me up because like I was taught people are scary, dangerous, and will betray you and humiliate you. And like I have so much PTSD from that, and bitterness and a bunch of other things that when I'm alone, it feels like the only time I can relax even a little bit. And even then I feel stressed, but like, you know, I don't have to perform. I can just be, I can let it all down. I can just relax. I don't have to be aware that I'm being watched. because like I literally can't do shroom trips with people because the moment I can't actually dig into myself, because the moment I realize I'm being watched, my ego or my outer self or whatever you want to call it kicks in, and I start like micromanaging shit, and I can't just like be, and like, so in a way, I almost feel safer being alone and like relying on myself. I do not, it's scary as fuck even thinking about relying on other people, because I at least know I can handle it. I will protect myself. I will fucking be there for me, you know? Yeah. But that can cause me to close off, you know, sometimes.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, the next question was going to be, what are common misconceptions about NPD you'd like to clear up? Cat going crazy. But I don't know if there's anything that we haven't covered. Is there something that comes to mind that you want to mention?
Yeah. The complete lack of empathy thing. First of all, you know, people with comorbidities, and I know that we talked about that already, but what if somebody has NPD and BPD? What are you going to do? How does that person experience empathy? What if, you know, by the way, like struggling with empathy is only one criteria out of 9, and you only need 5. If we're going by this DSM, which sucks ass, by the way, you heard it here. Sorry. Not, you know, there's still, they can lack that criteria and still have NPD. So like, you know, and then you have people with ASPD and NPD, and maybe they completely lack empathy, or it's more close to that because they've got that antisocial personality on top. But, you know, it's the lack of, you know, my empathy, for example, is just really impaired. But I have had moments where, and it's usually when I feel safest, like when I feel safe, where like I can let in somebody's energy enough to like feel for 1 second. And it's still hard for me to hold on to it. That's another impairment. I may feel it in the moment, but later it doesn't matter because like I can't emotionally remember it. So it's complicated. It's really complicated. And I think just saying lack of empathy is very like reductionist. And I think that like that definitely should be talked about, along with the fact that having low empathy or having high empathy doesn't even make somebody like good or bad.
No, thank God you mentioned that, because there's people with high empathy who are incredibly dysregulated and are very toxic to other people. They feel it. They feel other people's emotions and stuff. Uh-oh. What happened? Guys, what is going on? Spirit Narc disappeared for me. Hey guys, can you hear? Oh damn, Spirit Narc left. No, what happened? Oh shit, should I pause this? Is she coming back? I'm scared now. Can you guys hear me? She disappeared, right? Okay, I don't know if maybe I should just like, I think her cell phone died, or her battery, right? So if her battery died, you know what? This is, we had a few more questions to ask, but I guess life is letting us know that we have come to the end of the conversation. So I think I'm gonna wrap this up, because I've seen this happen in some of her other lives where her cell phone dies and then she has to leave. Let me see if she's saying something here, or if she just yeah, I think her cell phone died because she's not on Instagram either. So for people who are asking, this is going to be subtitled in Portuguese. I just need maybe a week or so. I'm going to pay someone to do the subtitles because it's too long to have those done. This has been great content. I'm really happy to have done this live. We talked about a lot of important things that I've been meaning to talk about. For the Brazilians who didn't understand everything, fiquem tranquilos, depois eu vou legendar, tá? Colocar no YouTube em português. Thank you so much, Jacob, and NPD April, and Ana, Carol, Crazy, Chris, Crazy, Jovi Girl.
New York. Desi, Love and Life. Eddie, Anna, Jessica, Mona Soul, is that it? Is that how you say it? Veronica. Oh God, that's a name I cannot pronounce. Ishriger, I don't know how to pronounce that. Gio, you guys have some complicated names. Ilajota, Gisiane, Laís, Prairie Girl, Little Fam Jam. Okay, guys. Cody the Capricorn. Here's another Capricorn for you. Thank you so much for being present. This was awesome. This was awesome. I loved it so much. I will be uploading it to YouTube, and I'll figure out what happened to Tessa later on. Thank you guys so much for being part of this. What a pity that we couldn't get to the questions, right? Oh no, she's not here. She's not here. I thought she had tried to connect again, but that's not her. It's a pity that her phone died. Her phone died. Let me ask if she wants to keep going. I'm still on. Okay, so she's talking to me here. Okay. Let's see if she's gonna be able to log back on. Woohoo! Cool. I'm getting hungry, man. Thinking about what I'm gonna eat after this. Okay, so I think she's gonna come back on. Yay! Yay! She's coming back on. She's logging on. These treacherous phones. I knew it! Like her battery must have died.
I heard Hungry Man, and I was like, that is so relatable. Yeah, like, first of all, like, I'm totally willing to go live again, and if you just want to, like, finish up these questions, that could be, like, perfect.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, let's do that. Let's do that, because otherwise, like, this is getting very long. We're going on to, like, I think almost 3 hours or 2.5 hours. It's a long live, but I love it, man. Yeah, we started like at 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, we're almost 2.5 hours. So it's a long live. Okay, so let's get some more questions in there, and then I don't know. I guess we won't be able to get to people's questions, but you know what? We'll do another live. We'll do something else if you're up for it in the future. Okay, so this is a good question. You were talking about the empathy thing. Did you finish talking about that misconception, or do you want to say anything else?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is a question that I've been meaning to ask. What has the impact of personality disordered people getting together whilst focusing on self-development? Like these communities, what has the impact been?
I think that it is going to change the world. I think it already has. I think it's continuing to do so. I think it's changing both young people's lives, the way we treat mental health in the coming generations. And, you know, it's even affecting partners of people with cluster B, like, disorders, because, you know, it's promoting self-awareness for everyone, I feel like. And if partners are able to see, I think, like, let's just take narcissists. If narcissists can have a safe space, you know, there's no information out there right now, right? But if they can have a space where they're like, oh, shit, these people, you know, like me and Jacob are kind of cool, right? And they've got NPD and they're healing and it's possible. Holy shit. Like, whoa, you know, and they feel better. You know, like more people are going to want to heal. They're going to want to take the leap. And if I can figure out how to like get unaware narcissists self-aware, which is a big task, you know, without having them to go through some awful experience like I did, that would be life-changing. I think the community in itself helps people feel less alone. And like a lot of these people struggle with suicide, like, you know, thoughts of suicide, passivity, you know, like whatever, not feeling good. And knowing that somebody else out is there with you fighting, it's changed my life. I love this community. I love the people in it. I'm part of a group chat full of like all women, and I have trauma with women, like really bad trauma. I was bitter for a very long time. So the fact that I never thought this would be my life. When I came on and I started this community, there wasn't this community like in a big way around, you know. It was very bare bones, and it's just grown so beautifully. And like the fact that I can just log on and be like, hey, I'm having a bad day. You know, does anyone else relate to?
Absolutely.
That's where the healing happens, the acceptance of, you know, the trauma, saying you're not a monster, you know, you can heal, there is hope, you know, I understand your pain, you know, all of these things, while, you know, actually giving real reasons to partners about why people with cluster Bs do what they do, because people are confused. I was confused, like, hell, before I was here, I was blind in the dark about why I did anything. So like, it also heals, you know, people to know the real reasons, because right now we have a lot of people posting, you know, hurt partners posting very angry things sometimes, or just incorrect things. It's a guess. The best they can do is guess. And about what it looks like on the outside, all these behaviors, they have to guess about it and they don't really know. So having it come from the inside, I think, is just so valuable. Thank you guys.
And very humanizing. And very humanizing, right? Because like, when I watch your guys' channels, I'm like, well, I don't have a predominantly narcissistic personality, but you guys mention things that I've experienced.
Oh my God.
Just not to that level, to that degree. But like, I know what feeling shame at your core is like. I definitely know what that's like, you know. I know what not having a sense of self is like. I know what depression is like. You know, so I know what anxiety is like. I know what panic attacks caused by drugs are like. Those are intense.
See, that's where I'd feel empathy, because I've experienced that shit directly, and it is fucked up. And I would not. I was gonna say I would not wish it on my worst enemy, but then my ego came up and was like, "Yeah, you would." Fuck them. It's bad. Oh my God! But no, like the thing is, yeah. Anyway, though, like breaking down NPD has been a bizarre and very enlightening experience, where I found that a lot of the things that are going on are actually present in other mental health disorders, like CPTSD, delusions, cognitive distortions. Oh my God, you'd expect, it's the last place you'd expect that, but I feel like narcissists wake up and achieve like all 15 cognitive distortions in the first hour. I mean, I know I do. It's like every single one on that goddamn list of like cognitive distortions, you know, like it's an existence experienced through a lens that has been so hurt and distorted by, you know, the people who were supposed to raise us right. And, you know, like now it's, I'm trying to remember, there was this one time, for example, where I was like talking to Jacob, and I'm not exposing him here or anything, but we were talking about like, I was making this comparison to like depression is like a backpack you carry, right? Like, and you know, don't you want to lighten that backpack? Wouldn't that feel good? And he was like, well, I can carry the backpack, you know, like I'm stronger. Like he made like a, right? And I was like, you don't deserve to, man. That's what it's about. I'm not questioning like your abilities here. It was so cute. Like it was so wholesome. I was like, oh man, do I relate? And also like, he's looking at the wrong thing. And like this happens to people, not the wrong thing, but like the distorted, it's like your brain wants to go immediately to, well, I can handle this, but it's like, you shouldn't have to. You don't deserve that pain. You don't deserve to carry all those backpacks. It's not about, can you handle it? And so I said to him, I said, yes, you can. And you can handle it 10 times over. And you don't deserve to walk through this. You know, you deserve to have a lighter load to carry and enjoy your life more. And, you know, that's just one example of a cognitive distortion that can come up. But God, there's plenty. There's so many, and I don't even know where to begin. Like, if people have specific questions, it's like, oh, fuck, here's another good one. Anxiety, which we should also, I think that's a fascinating topic. But anxiety and NPD, when you hear, like, I have anxiety, I think a lot of narcissists are trained by, you know, their parents or their family system or the world to be like, oh, that's weak. I don't experience anxiety. I'm way stronger than that. I'm confident, you know? So if you hear, you look anxious, you're like, oh shit, I'm worthless. I'm a fucking pathetic loser, can't handle, weak emotion, like no, whatever. Your brain either goes there or it gets super fucking angry, and you have to make the other person tell you all the ways in which you're confident so you can restore your self-esteem. But how about this? There's a third option where anxiety doesn't equal not confident. That's a black and white distortion. And it just means you're traumatized and a confident person. You know, you're a confident person who's fucking badass, and you went through so much trauma, and now you have PTSD, and that gives you anxiety. And you're strong, if anything, for fighting it. How about that? Like, do you see how that just flipped? Like, you know, but this is why, yeah, but like, it's insane, because if you can't work through that distortion, you're never going to show up in therapy, because it's shameful to you to admit that you struggle with that stuff. And like, yeah, I mean, breaking NPD down is super fascinating. Once you see everything, like, oh, wait, other, you know, these are things that already exist that people already know how to treat. So I think treating NPD is more about using, like, first of all, breaking it down into little bits that you can understand that people already have treatments for. And
Perfect.
Then it's about untangling the web, because, you know, I always say this, like, you know, with humiliation trauma, which is like what a lot of the grandiosity covers up, right? Like, oh, I'm the best. If anything goes wrong in a social situation, it's not me. That makes you feel safe, because if it was you, maybe you're shameful, maybe you're cringy, maybe you're embarrassing, right? Maybe you're whatever. Those are fears, because the child self was so humiliated, right? EMDR has helped me a shit ton, because it reprocesses traumatic emotional events, and it takes it from your left brain to your right brain to your left brain, and like that releases the trauma that's stored in the body. And like, and yeah, I hope I'm making sense, but like, these are treatments that already exist. People seem to think of, like, it's like this mystical, like, you know, crazy, like, unfathomable,
But I would
disorder.
say that part of the reason people think about it that way is because of the grandiosity in NPD. Narcissists present themselves as aliens who are so incredibly different, who are so incredibly, you know?
This is, you were, okay, right before you said that, I was going to say, and while that flatters my ego, comma, I love it. One thing that I have not been able to let go of is when people say, you know, it's only human, you're human, this and that. I'm like, no, I can't handle it. I'm not. No.
Exactly.
I am a myth.
There is a resistance there. Like we like I watching you guys, I'm like, shit, man, but they seem very human to me. And like I have cluster Bs in my life and narcissists in my life and stuff, you know. And so I see it up close and personal, and I have clients and all of that. But it's like the way that you guys in the beginning, that's why I say there's healing for you guys, and I can see it from the outside. In the beginning, like Jacob said something in our life, is like, oh, you know, for narcissists, people talk about the true self, but for us, like, we wonder, is there even a true self? Is there anything there? Is there even an inner child? I'm like, of course you have all of this stuff, because, you know what I'm saying? I didn't say anything to him, but I'm just like, yes, you guys are humans, for Christ's sake.
Nah.
But to admit that you're a human.
But I think that there's not nothing. I agree with you on the not nothing, because I think that, you know, I think almost that this disorder has a really insidious part where it makes you believe you have no personality. Like, it's part of, you know, the reason that I will either like become super grandiose, or I won't go out at all, because like I'll get in these moods where something's triggered me, and I'm like, oh, like watching celebrities, for example, on YouTube, and I'm like, I start noticing their quirks and all these traits they have, and they're so natural, and like they're just expressing themselves, and they seem so alive, and suddenly I'm in my head like, you're an empty shell, you're so fucking hollow, you're not even a real person, you know, who would even like want to whatever be friends with, like, there's nothing to be friends with, like, you have no inner self, blah blah blah. Your thoughts really take you down that road, and it causes like a crash. And I almost think, because I've asked my boyfriend about this a lot, that in itself is part of the disorder and a delusion, where it wants you to believe you have no personality, but it's just I think it's the sense of something missing, but like you're catastrophizing it, because I do think while there is something missing, there's also not nothing, you know. There's an in-between. I think there's like I think there's definitely like a validity to, like, yes, something's fucked up in there, something's tangled, something's messy, but there's no empty zombie whatever, you know, that people talk about. Yeah, like that's not it. It feels like that at the crux of, like, when I was super unself-aware, I couldn't make music. I'm an artist, right? Like, I sing, I sound engineer. My music lost all its life because I woke up every day just so disconnected from any emotions, from any wants or desires except to be famous. So I would just like try to produce a pop hit, and like I'd look up to my celebrity idol who I've based, you know, honestly, like 80% of my personality off of, and be like, I want to be like her. How does she do her music? Basically what I'm trying to say is like, the songs I produced at the height of my disorder were shit because it sucked the life out of you, you know. And there's an aspect
Sure.
of that where you know, it's almost like a, does that make sense? It's sad. I don't know. It's sad. It's the same thing.
Yeah, because you're not coming from the inside out. Because like if you're an artist, there's got to be a flow. There's got to be a connection to this other thing, right? It's like you're trying to construct this external appearance of pop music or whatever. Of course, it's gonna feel empty and weird.
Yeah, it does. And I think that like it's not just in that aspect, but like seriously, this disorder can fucking suck the life out of you. I mean, you don't enjoy nature. You don't enjoy anything. Everything's boring. Everything's boring. People are like never interesting enough. Like, I don't know. I think that may be because you're not actually connecting, which is what makes life interesting. Who knows? Who fucking knows? I have theories, but like, but you know, yeah, I forget what we were talking about. EMDR, but like I went on a tangent, but like, yeah.
Tangents.
But like, yeah, once you break stuff down, I think, oh yeah, back to the mystical. People think this is some crazy mystical disorder that must have some radical new treatment. What if it's just as simple as, you know, all these tiny little treatments, and really it's about untangling the web of like, there's multiple problems. That's why I'm mapping out NPD now. I've mapped half of it out by now, where I'm like, I took every single roadblock that could possibly be present in this disorder, stopping love from happening, stopping like feeling alive from happening. And I mapped it out and I said, holy shit, there's a million different problems going on. No one even knows where to start. No one even knows what to do. But the problems that are happening, people already know about. Cognitive distortion, delusion, you know, fear, PTSD, trauma, you know, like, yeah. So it's more about untangling the web, if anything. I hope that, yeah.
Yeah. I wanna, are you sharing this stuff that you're untangling? Are you gonna share it, or are you?
I can.
The way that you're mapping it all out?
Yeah, I can. I just don't know if people are interested. I was like, I need people to be interested.
I'm interested.
Okay.
I'm super mega interested. Are you kidding me? I talked to you. I approached you the first time because you were talking about this in your stories about mapping it out and breaking it down. And I was like, let's do a live about it.
Yeah. Okay. So, one of the first things that I put, I think, was like the inability to see people. And that's a really big category, but like, if you can't see somebody like fully, like your partner or other people, and you're only seeing like a construct of them, or like you're not seeing, you know, you're not able to see them without a distorted lens, you can't love. It blocks love. That's just blocking love. Putting somebody on a pedestal because you have this idealized image of them, and like it's like, oh, that's who they are, and then when they fail that, it's like, that's not who they are. None of that's correct. You know, there's a more intricate person in the middle. So that's just one thing that blocks love. I'm trying to think of like more stuff.
Wait, what we can do? Hold up, because if we get into this, it's gonna be a 6-hour live. So we could do a separate live about that, so you can like write your notes and stuff. Because I want to know all of this stuff.
I have a literal list of it. I'm just trying to figure out how to put it on the internet. Because like in an ideal world, what I would want is to have it on my website, you know, I call it self-supply. It's this website I'm making, and I want people to be able to, it's a play on, you know, the word supply. It's kind of like taking it back from the stigma and being like, this is our word now. And also it's like you're self-healing. You're not relying on others. You're coming to this site to heal. And I would want to like list, you know, God, if I could get it to the point where I could list like, hey, are you feeling like this right now? Or are you feeling like this or this? And then however the person's feeling, they can click on that tab and it'll open up like a possibility of like what's going on. And then they can like help themselves become self-aware. And like I could do that, and I could make it.
That sounds amazing.
I sound like this insane mad genius right now. I'm like, I'm gonna map it out.
That's what I like. I like the crazy mad geniuses who are like, the world sucks. I'm going to do something useful with it and find meaning in my life. That's the point, man.
You guys got me grandiose now. Someone in the comments said, that's it. I'm the best. All right.
So you wanna? So let's. If whenever you're ready, if you want to, I would love to do a live on that. If you want to share it, however you want to share it, whenever you want to share it. Do you want to finish up a couple of these questions and then wrap it up for today? I need to eat, man. This is great, but I'm like, my stomach is already like, my God, you need to eat, man. You need your second dinner.
Yeah, we'll finish it up. So go for it.
Okay. So a couple of questions. The last two questions would be, what has been the most useful in your healing process and why? And the last one would be, do pets help with your mental health at all and how? So whatever you want to answer.
I'll save the pets to wrap it up because that's cute. So the things that have been most helpful in my self-awareness journey has honestly been this community. Number one, just like the acceptance. Having boyfriends that have been very accepting. You know, even exes, you know, my current boyfriend, obviously. I'm trying to think. Obviously, this is controversial, but shrooms has not even slightly cured anything, but has opened up my emotions again when they were so lost and so repressed. And I forever clearly worship that because I got my little, I'm a hippie now. That's my new, I rewrote myself. Oh, God, I not rewriting, but we can do that some other time too. But yeah, like I think that, and then just being able to broaden the idea of what's okay as a sense of self, because I think a lot of narcissists run into this problem where it's like, if I'm this, I'm great. If I'm this, I'm shameful and fucked and worse, right? So one example that I like, just one, was the anxiety thing. Being able to tell yourself it's okay that I accept my anxiety as part of what I'm dealing with because it's my trauma, and it doesn't mean I'm not confident. If you can get yourself to that point where it's not black and white, where you're not just splitting on your own self, it's either I am ultra confident or anxious, weak, pathetic person, right? If you can get yourself out of that black, like that's the vulnerability, grandiosity thing right there. And like in the middle is, yeah, that's really, really helpful. And then you can accept more and more of what's really inside, I guess, like the fragmentation thing, being able to say to yourself, like, hey, I may be kind of empty right now, kind of hollow, but you know what? I still deserve friendships, okay? I didn't ask to be like this. I'm not going to hold myself anymore to some crazy high standard where I have to be, you know, utterly not fragmented, and then I deserve to be popular and like amazing and famous. I can do that right now, you know, that's acceptable. You know, you have to be kinder. Goddamn, like you have to be kinder. People are in like, I think, a bit of a delusion about, you know, narcissists are so nice to themselves and then horrible to everyone else. And I'm just like, oh God, it doesn't stop there. No, I'm nice to nobody. I'm not nice to myself either. You think I'm nice? Like, no, my ego will tear the shit out of me if it sees something about like inside myself that it doesn't think should be the ideal self. It'll fuck that shit up. And that's me, or something in there. It'll do that to other people, you know. There's, I think, like having, if you any sort of compassion or like kindness to like yourself, like just saying like, hey, you've gone through so fucking much, you're so strong for even being alive, you know. So I'll leave that there. And then like for the pets, the last thing, I actually have a quick story, and I think it's like really sweet. I got my dog Mocha. Actually, babe, do you want to bring Mocha over here?
Aww.
She's a Chihuahua. She's a Chug, and I got her for like not quite honestly and very loving reason. I'm gonna be honest. I got her because I was obsessed with this celebrity who I've based my sense of self on, and she has a Chihuahua, just like, you know, a blonde Chihuahua. So I got this one. And I was like, oh.
Aww.
She was like,
so cute.
Hi, Momo.
Oh. Oh. What's it's her? It's a her?
It's a her.
What's her name again? I'm sorry.
Mocha.
Mocha.
But yeah.
Mocha, you're so beautiful.
Yeah, she's very cute. But yeah, if
so
I can keep...
Oh, look at that face. Sorry, I'll shut up. I'm like enthralled with Mocha.
But yeah, I got basically like she's taught me so much, like compassion. I think that almost in a spiritual way, animals feel like little angels that are just sent here to protect us and give us whatever we need. If it's protection, compassion, like whatever we need to learn. And I got this dog originally to just look like my celebrity, the one that I've based my personality off of for like 7 years. And I was like, oh, this will complete the picture. It was all image based. And then I got this dog, and I had this weird moment where it's like, well, she's not just like that dog that my celebrity has. And then like I had this process of like learning to love her as like her soul and her being, and not some prop or like whatever, you know, to make me feel more like my celebrity so I feel great about myself or whatever. It was just like this process of like, oh shit, this is a real warm soul and being, and like, you know, I allow her to be who she is. And like I hope that made sense, but like I love her. She changed my life. And like I have a cat, Alice, who I got from another cluster B, actually, a borderline. So shout out to Joe if he ever watches this. I don't think he will. He has a really difficult time sometimes, but he's not online very much. But he had one extra cat. He was moving, couldn't keep her, and suddenly he's shipping me a cat, and like that's this community. He's shipping me a cat, and
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, sometimes when I'm feeling really, really bad, I hug my pets, you know? Like, yeah, it has changed my life, and I love ending this live on that note. My little baby.
So on that note, I have to figure out how to, on that note, hey Kat,
Also,
do you wanna be part of the live? Hold up, let me.
I wanted to just share, oh my God, hi cutie.
She's been here the whole 3 hours.
Oh
É
my
tão
God.
bonitinha.
That's just
É tão bonitinha.
she just sits and then does
Adorable.
little
She does. So small
cute.
and cute. And she's 13 years old.
Oh my God, that is wonderful. I hope my pets live that long. Chihuahuas are supposed to live like, I'm like, please. That's amazing. What a beautiful way to end all of this. I love it.
I agree.
Well,
I agree. I love it too.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, man. This was great. This was like much more awesome than I could have imagined. I'm so glad that you were comfortable enough to come on. Yeah. We talked about like everything that was really important that I really wanted to talk about, that I've been following you and thinking about. I was like, dude, people need to talk about this stuff. People need to talk about this stuff. And I'm so happy to be bringing this information to Brazil. I am sure that lots of narcissists will watch this and they'll be like,
I hope so.
This is useful. This is useful. Some of my clients were watching it, so it's already going to be useful. It's going to be translated, and I mean, thank you so much. Just thank you so much. And whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready to do the other part where you break down the traits, even if you want to do it in parts or whatever, you know, so it doesn't have to be another 3-hour live unless you want to. I just have to have food nearby.
Nearby next time. I'm literally down. You have no idea. This has become my passion, you know, because I somehow just discovered a passion for the first time of like fighting back at the world like this. I would do another, yeah, thank you so much. I would do another.
Love it.
I'll go through, yeah, I'll go through my list. We'll do the whole thing. Hopefully
Perfect.
I'll have that.
Perfect.
But yeah, thank you.
Perfect. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Gente, muito obrigada. Thank you to all the people that were following the live, the people that I don't know, the people that I do know.
Thank you.
This was awesome.
Yes, thank you.
See you soon.
Yeah.
Bye, doggy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.